Can we check on the audio real quick? Can folks hear me? Oh, I can't hear you.
We can hear you, Ananda. I don't think it's other people in the boardroom we can hear.
Oh, I think Barbara just turning on the mic now. Ali, do you mind talking again?
Yeah, Ananda, can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, thank you.
So I'll call this meeting, the regular meeting, the Board of Education to order. I'll start us off by reciting our vision statement. Every school will be a thriving school that prepares every student to graduate from high school, college, career, and community ready. We're gonna start tonight on, I think, kind of a sad note in parting ways with two board members, Chris Carusi and Ananda Morelli. And I am going to give us all an opportunity to speak to what it has meant to work with these two astounding people. And I think we'll just kind of go around. So Nikki, do you mind starting us out?
Not at all. Just getting used to the mic. Ananda and Chris, you've both done absolutely a wonderful job on this board. And I love the passion. Ananda, you did a great job with your work. Chris, you and I have known each other for a very long time. So you will both be missed on this board, especially your use of statistics, which I still am trying to figure out the data dashboard. But you will definitely be missed, and both of you have done such an excellent job for Mmsd. So just want to thank you both for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Both board member Carusi and Morelli, over these past 3 years, very appreciated the thoroughness, thoughtfulness, and expertise that you bring to this role in all our meetings. And we've accomplished a lot together, and we've been through a lot of adversity together. And we'll cherish these last 3 years for the rest of my life, and the memories we've made and the hard work we've done. And we'll miss y'all in these roles in particular, but we'll certainly continue a relationship forward. So thank you so much for your time.
I have to separate the two of you, so I'm going to talk about you one at a time. And I'm going to start with Chris. Chris, we entered this board together, and working with you has been one of the most incredibly informative and driven experiences I've ever had. You are a sincere professional. You love this community and our schools, and we are all better for having the opportunity to work with you. So thank you so much for serving with me and with us. Ananda Morelli, you are one of my dearest friends, and I love that I got to run with you. I got to be on this board with you. I got to know you in so many ways. You are one of the most ferocious advocates for our young people and our schools and our educators this community has ever known. And not getting to work with you anymore is heartbreaking and soul crushing, and also beautiful, because you are pursuing, things that mean so much to you. And I know that no matter where you go or what you do, you will carry our students and our schools and our educators with you. And I love you very much. I'm so glad I got to work with you.
I don't know if anyone is talking, but I can't hear.
I forgot to turn on my mic. It was such a nice tribute to Chris. I'm gonna have to start all over. All right. So Chris, what I was saying, can you hear me now, Ananda? Can hear that? Yes. Okay. So I've appreciated your thoughtful analysis of complex issues that are facing our district. You prioritize staff, students, and families in decision-making processes in order to improve the district and our schools. You have guided the budget and the operations work group for the board for the last 2 years through difficult budgets, a complex referendum process, and a pandemic. And I thank you for your service on the board. Ananda, we haven't always seen eye to eye on issues, but you have the most fierce dedication to highlighting racial and economic disparities that must be addressed, both at the K-12 education level and larger society. You've also worked extremely hard to increase collaboration of the district, the city, and county to benefit students and families across our city. I've learned much from your determination, and I thank you for your service on the board.
Can you hear me? Okay, so I will also separate you all. And I'll start with Chris since she's in the room. I always appreciate our conversations that we've had about, just how we can be better board members. And I'm really thankful for what I've learned about the budget. That definitely helps me move forward in the next couple of years. So I've only been here just for a year, but I'm thankful for the time that we've had together. So thank you. And then Ananda, we're also friends. And I always appreciate your attention just to details about like our community. More so, you're like my South Side, like ride or die. And I absolutely love it because not a lot of people are in our spaces who are able to sound the alarm for our neighborhood. So I really appreciate that. And I'm looking forward to continuing to work with you, even outside of this capacity. But yeah, because you're a strong advocate for our neighborhood and our city. So let's go hard for these babies. And thank you for your service.
Nama, would you like to say some parting words to Chris and to Ananda?
Of course. I guess just starting off, I've only been here for like less than a year, so it's been a crazy thing just to being a part of these meetings and hearing all of your voices, and especially Chris, every question you've had really brought an insight to discussions that we've been having, and I think your voice has really helped me like understand and learn a lot about how the system works and kind of how I can incorporate student voices and make sure my peers and other students are heard. And also, Ananda, I really want to thank you. You've always been there for student representation and student voice. Gordon and I have many discussions. We've always brought you up about how you can incorporate, your voice, our voice on the board through you and your relationship that, you've created with us, and your support is really meaningful to us. And both of you, thank you so much for your service. I've been here for a short time, but I've learned a lot from both of you and kind of hearing your voice. And I've been really thankful for that experience. So thank you.
Dr. Jenkins, would you like to say anything to the board members who are?
Most definitely. I just tell you, and I have to separate both because both of you have just given so much to me. And Chris, our conversations and your ability to help me grow as a superintendent with some of your questioning and just make sure we're really thorough and focused on our children, our larger goals. I'll always appreciate that. And then the small conversations that we can have on the side, just you and I, in the way that you had this quirky way of seeing things sometimes that was so cool that you and I could talk about. And I really appreciated that. So I've grown a lot from those conversations. So thank you. You're going to be missed on our board, and everyone knows that you're going to keep us all fiscally responsible even after you're off the board, right? She'll probably be at the operation meeting for a hobby, and I just tell you, kind of hard. Ananda, wow. We go, it has been wonderful. I mean, the conversations at the board table and just, I'll never forget, Ananda said, why we can't do both. And I have lived with that. Like, I've always thought you had to do one or the other, but you raised that question to all of us, and I will carry that with me for the rest of my life. Why can't we do both? Why can't we serve all sides of our city? And your degree of advocacy for student voice, it's like second to none. You have been a model for us in that, in equity issues, and just keeping it real. at the board table, off the board table, but your sense of humanity, human decency has really helped influence a lot of what has happened here. And you've made us all better because of it. So I would like to say thank you to you too, and thank you for the side conversations that you would make me laugh about stuff. So thank you so much for doing that.
I think we all could say a lot of things about how much it means to work to you, and it's hard to narrow down, this to a few sentences, in part because, I think there's the public facing side of what we all do, and then there's the behind the scenes work where you really need one another's support. I think about like when I broke my hand, Chris wrote for me. And those are the parts of this job that people aren't always aware of. And I think, you all will be so greatly missed. So thank you for all the work that you've done. And now for your final regular board meeting, let's jump into public comment. We have one written statement that is summarized. There is one written statement submitted through our website in support of designated SR3 funding towards mental health and trauma support and narrowing the school to prison pipeline. A copy of the full written statement is available on board docs. And now we will launch into public comment. And Barb, I think you're gonna guide us through that.
Okay, we have 23 speakers. I'm going to let them all in at one time so we can go as quickly as we can. Thank you. Our first speaker is Yummy Harding. First speaker is Yummy Harding.
Hello. My name is Yummy Harding. I graduated in spring of 2020 from Madison West High School. And today I'm going to be speaking with you guys about my experience as a young musician in MMSD and the effect that it's had on me. I participated in the arts community in a few ways during my time in Madison School District, having done orchestra and theater and choir by the time I'd graduated. I grew up in a low income and single parent household, meaning there weren't a lot of activities open for me that didn't cost my mother some amount of money. When I started choir in middle school and continued throughout high school, one of the greatest things about it was that all you needed was your voice and a willingness to learn. It is an extreme privilege to be able to achieve a musical education outside of public schooling, and it goes without saying that quite a few students that attend the schools being affected by these cuts don't have the ability to pay for private lesson costs and instrument fees or have access to reliable transportation. I loved orchestra and excelled in it until the 9th grade when I was made to quit because I didn't have room in it for my school schedule. It was impossible to find a place where I could feel free or where I could get free private lessons, and my mother simply didn't have the money to pay for them, let alone rent the instrument. Losing the opportunity to further my learning with the cello was not only painful, but a huge hit to my growth as a musician. Having the chance to partake in something so cognitively stimulating as a child and being given the space and tools to expand on it is something that I am so grateful for. I believe that these kids deserve the chance to get that experience, especially right now with COVID, and many of them still dealing with the trauma of the last few years, as I know we all are. Music and performing is an escape and coping mechanism for me and has done a great deal for my overall mental health throughout the years. My hours in practice rooms, singing arrangements, and being with my friends not only gave me musical knowledge I never would have had, but has been a haven for me in so many hard times in my life. My experience in choir helped me later participate in a group that as of 3 days ago has been named a finalist in the International Championship of Collegiate Acapella. My time on stage has created an outgoing person always willing to speak their piece and let their voice be heard. Low-income students deserve to have this regular access to these experiences, even if they don't come from the same resources as some of their more affluent counterparts. I would not be who I am without these opportunities, and therefore insist that you take this into account when making further decisions for these young artists. Thank you so much.
Our next speaker is Amy Casper.
Good evening. Our family has 2 children at MMSD, one at Sherman Middle School and one at East High School. First, I just want to express my gratitude for your tireless service as school board members. Your commitment to our schools during such challenging times is truly greatly appreciated. As you begin the hard work of developing the 22-23 school budget, I'm here to advocate against making any cuts to music staffing levels at our middle and high schools for next school year. Our children's music classes have always been the most enjoyable part of their day. What gets my sophomore son out of bed every morning? It's his first hour music class. It is the one class that he was willing to turn his camera on last year. While I understand that tough decisions are going to need to be made in light of declining enrollment, now is not the time to find the savings by cutting music allocations at our music and high schools. Moreover, it is impossible to gauge accurately interest in such programs after a full year of virtual learning, where students largely made music by themselves in their bedrooms. As you know, the district has 3 main goals as part of its strategic framework, all 3 vitally important. But it's that second goal, that all students thrive in a positive school climate, that I think often gets forgotten in terms of sustained, consistent investment. The arts, music, that is an essential component of a thriving school, yet it appears based on planning instructions for next year's budget, this is where savings have been asked to be found once again. After one of the most tumultuous, challenging 2 years in the history of public education, now is not the time to cut music programs. And if anything, new investments in the arts is how we reverse a negative enrollment trend, stop the disruptive turnover of our music educators, and boost the mental health of our students and staff. Let's not make an investment in a summer arts academy and then undermine that very investment by cutting allocations to school year music programs. Participating in music, hearing it in halls and classrooms is one of the most powerful ways to engage our diverse, beautiful student body and has immeasurable positive effects throughout the entire community. Cuts to music incredibly short-sighted, and I strongly encourage the board and administration to rethink its current planning instructions for next year surrounding music education. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Beck McDowell.
Hey, Barb, we're hearing a little bit of feedback from Richard Wagner. Can you mute that person? Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Beck McDowell, and I'm a senior attending Madison East High School. I've been participating in my school's band programs since I was 11 in 6th grade. Coming from a family where nobody played an instrument, joining band in middle school presented itself as an opportunity to form a part of my identity I had not yet explored. As a 7th grader, my band director recommended me for the Madison All-City Honors Band, and since joining, my young life has been completely altered. My school's music program means more to me than just music education. As an anxiety-ridden freshman, the music wing presented itself as a safe space to unwind in my day and escape the daily social chaos and stresses of high school. The community and unique joy my peers and I gained from being around music on a daily basis was much deeper than simply learning how to solo over chords or mastering a new piece. As a senior, I've had the joy of using music to give back to my community throughout the 21-22 school year. As we all know, East has been in a state of relative unrest this year, and I know so many people who have stepped up to maintain a culture of positivity and goodness. My way of helping was wielding the skills my music department has given me to give all members of the student body something to rally around. In the fall, Mr. Saltzman, my band director, proposed some of us in jazz band should play in the school's welcome center for 45 minutes before class on Thursday. Prior to this, it was very common for fights to break out before first period even started, and our goal was to simply prevent this by bringing a positive energy through the beauty and entertainment value of our art. That first morning as we played, a crowd gathered, and it grew. As they stopped, I could see each individual forgetting subjects of worry in their lives as they listened. For the rest of that first Thursday, people of all demographics in the student body up to me to give thanks for the change in mood we provided. We have continued this activity every other Thursday, and I even had the pleasure to play with Mr. Render and Dr. Pryor. We even got on the local news. On a more personal note, I've been given the opportunity to perform music in college and have even earned a scholarship for it. Had I not had a band program to join in middle school and great educators to support the interest I had in my instrument, none of this would be a reality for me. It is also important to note that I have achieved all of this having never taken a paid-for private lesson for any of the instruments that I play. All of my musical knowledge and skill I have developed has been solely a result of my high school's music department and my willingness to practice and learn. The remedy for aggression and chaos that music provides in pre-collegiate education is a necessary and beautiful thing. Through friends gained, passions discovered, and skills learned, students in MMSD grow to be well-rounded, wonderful, professionally ready people through their involvement in their middle and high school music programs. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Melanie Smith.
Melody, you're muted.
Okay, much better now. Hello, I just want to take a few minutes also to speak in favor of increasing music funding for all school levels. Rumors are swirling about, obviously, that both music allocations and classes will be cut for next year at the middle school and high school level. We all know that COVID was very difficult on all the music programs, as it's not very fun to make music via Zoom. And we shouldn't assume that the kids couldn't do it via Zoom will not come back to our music programs. We are slowly returning to normal, and as the next budget is the perfect time to reinvest in our music programs, including new instruments for band and strings and standalone classes at the high school level for specific instruments to help kids like Beck that want to get great at an instrument do so without private lessons. It's extremely important that chorus, band, and orchestra all have fully funded full-time positions at the high school level. As Beck said, at East, we have our wonderful Mr. Saltzman, and our jazz band would not be able to perform if he was not willing to come to school an hour early on that day. With a part-time position, a staff member will not have the time or the inclination to do so. My son was also one of the students featured in the East High jazz band videos with Dr. Pryor and Mr. Render. We were so proud and happy to have them come and play with our kids. Those videos have been viewed over 10,000 times at a time when both East and MMSD really needed to get a good story on the news. And we all love those stories and want great outcomes, but those things do not happen without the investment in our music and a staff member willing to come an hour early to make it happen. My student has been fortunate to have so many great educators and music teachers throughout their time in MMSD that he is also considering music education as a major. As a parent, it's very hard for me to be supportive of that idea, as every year I watch our music educators have more and more on their plate and their jobs become more and more unstable with every budget. So now is the time to turn this around. MMSD should be number one, not falling behind the suburban schools. I appreciate all the hard work that you guys do. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Emmett Tom.
Hello, my name is Emmett Thom, and I'm a senior at Bell Phillips High School. And I would like to take a moment to share my positive experience with the music program in MMSD. As a transgender
Emmett, can you
student-
speak up just a little bit, please?
Yeah, you got it. As a transgender student, navigating through middle and high school has caused me to struggle in school and with mental illness. Due to obvious differences between my peers and me, I felt alienated amidst the people I've known since elementary school, despite even changing my voice through hormone replacement therapy. Choir, however, gave me the opportunity to not only share my voice, but to have it celebrated. I felt anchored in my school community in a way that no other class could offer. While my other teachers made me feel welcomed, music alone was the only discipline where I truly felt like I belonged, because we all shared a common goal to create art. With voice being my main instrument, transitioning from singing soprano to baritone and completely relearning how to sing was discouraging. My junior year, I joined the percussion section of band, and although these instruments were completely foreign to me, as I practiced and the year progressed, I saw myself gaining more skills and becoming better at the instruments I had so recently picked up. Seeing myself improve in other musical fields aside from voice helped me realize that it was still possible to become a sufficient singer in my new voice part, and added something new to my day that I'm passionate about. A few weeks ago, I was performing at a solo at District Solo and Ensemble, and my choir teacher from middle school, who I only had for one semester in 8th grade, was also there. She took time out of her day to watch my performance and ask how I was doing. After 4 years, she still remembered who I was. These are our music teachers, but sadly she, like many other teachers, had to leave Madison for a full-time job after several years of cuts and surplusing. I'm thankful to have grown up in the Madison School District. Over the past few years, especially following the pandemic, I've seen conventional mental health resources become more available to students. Although a small step, it is appreciated by struggling students. For those students who are too self-conscious or feel themselves too inarticulate or otherwise unable to approach counselors, the arts provide an outlet and community that simply can't be replicated in non-arts classes, no matter how hard teachers try. I ask you to please remember that choir, band, orchestra, and general music programming are also mental health resources. These classes are what get many students through their days. Please keep them present and accessible in our schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Erica Halverson.
Hi, friends. My name is Erica Halverson, and I am going to speak to you in support of increased funding for music and other arts programs in MMSD schools, wearing two different hats. The first hat I'm going to put on is as MMSD parent. Over the last 18 years, I've been a parent at 3 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, and 2 high schools. About 12 years ago, when my then high school child was having extreme mental health issues, the arts program at then named Memorial High School was the single only reason she ever went to school. And it literally kept her alive. Now I have a sophomore at Madison West High School. Thankfully, that child is thriving, and I worry less about her experiences with our arts programs, but I am astounded by the way in which the music program is the single most impactful mechanism for reaching the goals of equity, inclusion, and the celebration of Black genius that we have in MMSD. And coming back live for the first time in 2 years, the reason we come to school is the opportunity to see these live music performances at our school. This is the place where we can collectively work toward our Black excellence goals in schools, is in our funded public school arts classes. I want to switch hats. Some of you may know I also run a community arts outreach program in Madison called Whoop and Soccer. Still wearing my shirt from our first live performance since December 2019 this morning. And I just want to tell you a very quick story. One of the stories we performed was written by a young man, and it was a dialogue at a dance club about getting sturdy, which we're a bunch of dorky old people. We didn't know how to do. After the show, we asked him if we did it right. And all the kids said, absolutely not. You are dorks. You did not do it right. This young man came up on the stage, showed us how to get sturdy. I noticed his principal was filming the interaction, and I didn't think much of it. And then afterwards, she came up to me and she said, I want you to know that that child is the single most marginalized child with the greatest trauma history that we have in our school. And you got this child up on a stage doing his thing with the support of his peers and leading a group of professional artists in a professional practice. We can't do that alone. Community arts outreach programs, which have replaced K-8, drama, and dance education, which no longer exist through a public funding model, we can't hold all of that up on our own. We need the support of publicly funded music, art, and drama education in our public schools in order to keep the line going from the work we do with our youngest artists up through some of the incredible artists that you've already heard from this evening, telling you the ways in which their publicly funded arts education has made them the productive human beings that they've become. Thanks.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Brandy Funk.
Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you all today. My name is Brandy Funk, and I'm a parent of an MMSD high school alum and a current high school junior. And one of the most significant high points for our family during our entire time in MMSD has been the high school choir classes and concerts. MMSD music teachers foster encouragement, confidence, humor, inspiration, and courage in an incredibly positive community environment. As we already heard tonight. Music classes offer growth opportunities for all students like no other place in a school day setting. These kids find, build, and trust their abilities and emotions, and it's a safe place with a shared experience where their seated strength and conviction is able to bloom and where pride, risk-taking, grace, and determination is developed and honored. I do not believe that this is the time in our world to take joy out of our kids' lives. Right now, our kids are healing and coping, and we need to raise them up, build optimism, and be forward-thinking when considering the choices we make for their overall well-being. And that means more shared experiences in our public schools, not less. A report by Chorus America shares data and evidence regarding the development of good citizenship, valuable life skills, and academic success in students and young adults who participate in youth music programs. Our jobs are to teach our kids to be engaged, evolved, and positive community members. These are foundational and fundamental principles. Professional arts organizations nationwide are focused on leveling the playing field for underserved populations. Are we tasked with building a pipeline of leaders, believers, and collaborative adults? Why would we eliminate a vital part of that pathway to success? Why wouldn't we instead champion this essential piece and continue to support our underserved youth, the performing arts, and our dynamic community? I encourage the MMSD board and administration to strongly consider keeping and investing in music classes in our schools. Let's offer the space to shine a light on the development and talents of every single kid. Let's be strong advocates by continuing to provide our families with shared opportunities of joy, connection, and growth. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Terry Felton.
Hi, I'm Terry Felton. I am a 5th grade strings teacher at Elvium, Lindbergh, Lakeview, and Mendota Elementaries, and I am also a mother of a 5th grade student at Randall Elementary. And I am here to give my personal experience on how adding more allocation would support our youngest learners in instrumental music education and all music education. Our new art strategic plan states that we should have, or is striving to have, representative numbers of students who are normally underrepresented in the highest levels of arts classes in high school. And to make that happen, they need to have success at the beginner level, especially in instrumental music education. And I noticed throughout this year that more students were sitting in their orchestra chairs in 5th grade with their instruments in their laps, or halfway through class, packing them up and just sitting there and looking at me. And I would ask them why, and they would tell me, it's too hard, I can't do it. They want to play, but they just didn't feel like they could. I even had a girl in tears one day saying, I just can't do it. And so after winter break, I approached the 5th grade teachers at Lakeview and Mendota, where I saw this happening the most, and I said, can I take them out for some small group lessons, just anytime? They said yes, all of them supported it. So I made up a schedule. I've been going and volunteering my planning time every day at these 2 schools to have every student in that 5th grade orchestra come for a small group lesson. They can't wait to come. When I go to their classroom, they're like, is it me? And I ask them, is it because you're getting out of math right now? No, we just like strings. We like the small groups because we get more time with you. We're not distracted. We can focus on what we're doing. They want that attention. They feel success. They're happy. And I've noticed an immediate and significant improvement in our large group lessons. They're playing. They want to play. They want to do concerts. Their classroom teachers tell me that they are feeling more confident in their other classroom areas, not just in strings. And so there's crossover. And I urge you to please support more allocation so these kind of successes can happen for our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Devon Wells.
Hi, my name is Devon Wells. I use he, him pronouns, and today I am here to talk to you about music programs throughout the MMSD and the funding they receive. Like many people, music is a huge part of my life. From doing musical theater, to writing songs, to learning to play piano and guitar, but especially through my music classes. My music teachers have had such a huge influence on me, and I am honored to be able to speak before you on their behalf. I came in here with a professional speech ready, loaded with statistics. But I realized that that isn't what this is about. This is about my story, my experience. And so I'm throwing that speech out the window, and I am starting from scratch right here, right now. I have had a very rough childhood, to say the least. When I was 8 years old, I watched my parents get beat up by a group of 12 people, and I've always felt that it was my fault. And so we moved to Wisconsin, like immediately afterwards, and we enrolled in Schenck Elementary. And it was great. It was connected to a middle school where I got to see firsthand the kinds of music stuff that they do. Then the next year, my parents transferred me to Glenn Stevens Elementary School. Even better. I made so many connections in that year, in those 2 years actually. I met my best friends ever, who I am still best friends with to this day. And I love them. But one of the biggest achievements that I had there was getting into my music. Immediately starting the school year, I started writing songs. And I found that I am actually really good at it. And so then, come middle school, I go to Spring Harbor, a fairly small school, 270 students max. And I found immediately that I was able to be in a smaller choir class where I truly got to hone in on my abilities. And it was fun. I started learning to play guitar and piano and self-teaching myself. And it was one of the best experiences that I have ever had. I made so many connections at Spring Harbor with my teachers, more specifically my choir teacher. And he was incredible, and I loved him. And then come high school, where I am surrounded by people who I either A, haven't seen in years, or B, have never met. And I was very shy when I first came to Wisconsin, I'm not gonna lie. But come high school, I was out there. I have been openly gay for a few years now, and music has been one of the biggest things that have propelled me to be myself. And I have continued to advance in my music. I still write songs to this day. I'm still continuing to learn piano and guitar, and it's truly incredible. And I would not be the person who I am today without music. And so it really hits home to know that our music programs may very well be in danger, that we may lose our funding, that teachers may start leaving, that I may start losing the teachers who I truly care about. And so I urge you, please, do not cut the funding and instead give us more funding, because music programs truly do make a difference in kids' lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Heather Thorpe.
Hi there, my name is Heather Thorpe. I'm a longtime Madison resident and a parent of 3 Memorial High School students involved in all aspects of music and the arts, as well as a music teacher in a neighboring district. I want to start with an important fact. As of 2015, the US federal law, Every Student Succeeds Act, now requires that 17 disciplines be recognized as being equal importance in a well-rounded education. This includes music and the arts. So what does that mean to MMSD leadership? Means we must support the needs of students in the study of music, especially in locations where this support has been minimal. Today, I want to address two of the issues occurring in MMSD just recently, with proposed cuts of music classes at East, La Follette, and Memorial, and continued cuts to middle school choir and instrumental classes. First, MMSD continues to have administration arbitrarily making staff decisions. An example of this is just recently at Memorial High School. There's been a full-time orchestra teacher who was hired in the fall of 2021. The enrollment in these classes assigned to them has increased in 1 year. However, the position is still being surplused for the upcoming school year, proving the point that nothing is certain for faculty and arbitrary decisions in staffing are being made at any time, regardless of certification, licensure, and past promises. This is actually happening at every level, as I just talked to many of our music teachers over the weekend. There's been no opportunity to talk about the big picture or a philosophical approach to music classes or collaboration between music teachers, students, and administration. There is nothing to keep good teachers in the district if administration continues to create uncertainty about the arts positions and creates non-viable music positions through surplusing. Second, proposed cuts due to lower enrollment because of a pandemic and programming cuts at the middle schools. A band class at Memorial is proposed to be cut due to lower enrollment with rising ninth graders. These enrollments reflect the impacts of a pandemic and of the decisions made at the middle school levels to not offer regular instrumental or choir classes during the 2021 school year and limiting class offerings this year. The current lower enrollment in music classes is not unique to MMSD, but this is temporary. School districts that understand this and many of the MMSD administrators are protecting the art classes so they can rebuild. Simply cutting high school arts courses means that classes likely will never return and be lost forever, and the opportunity gap continues to widen for our students. There can be no great conclusion if decisions continue being made purely on numbers and not on philosophical understanding and caring hearts. The entire system will continue to erode, the opportunity gap for students will continue to widen, and MMSD will continue to lose outstanding educators who build relationships with students and families. Expert teachers will continue to feel disrespected, overworked, and leave the district or leave teaching altogether. The MMSD students deserve the best, and administrators need to create viable positions to keep and attract the very best for our students. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Cypress Stone.
Sorry, I'm actually speaking on behalf of my daughter, Cypress Stone. My video is not working here, so I apologize. My name is Kirk Stone. I'm a father of an 8th grader attending it.
I can help you with your video. So is that the name that you're under? Is Kirk?
It's coming up as Cypress, but it should be Kirk Stone. It's just saying the video is not allowing for it. You cannot start your video because the host has stopped it. Thank you. I'm the father of an 8th grader attending at O'Keefe Middle School who is eagerly looking forward to attending her freshman year at East High School. A large part of her excitement is the opportunity to immerse herself in the rich and diverse music community and traditions of the school. It's been a major part of her decision to attend there. But that's the story of one parent and one child amongst many. And this decision-making body is charged with making decisions which provide for the best benefits of all the students. To that end, I'd encourage you to view investments in music education as the best utilization of limited resources, indispensable, non-negotiable, rather than a luxury to be cut in lean times. In addition to the joys of making and sharing song and instrumentation, students who have access to comprehensive music education develop enhanced language capabilities, larger vocabulary, reading comprehension skills, and development of multiple languages. They have improved memory capability and auditory and visual and memory testing. They have higher levels of gray matter volume in their brains, which are directly tied to auditory processing and comprehension. They have better study habits. They have specific and increased abilities on standardized tests. They have development of teamwork. They form communities of like-minded individuals who learn how to collaborate and help each other reach goals. They're able to listen to each other. sense and respond to the emotions of others, react with greater depth and understanding, and understand their own mental health. Your full support of high quality music education programs in our schools will provide for all of these many benefits and more. If you are looking for the most positive returns on your investments in the lives of our children, you will do your very best to ensure that music education not only survives, but thrives. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Aishika Samanta.
Hi, I'm Oishka Samanta, and I am a student at Bell Phillips High School.
Aishika, can you get a little closer to your mic, please? I can't hardly hear you.
When I went to Jefferson many years ago, I had a teacher named Mr. Nichols, and he was a huge part in introducing me to the instrument which I still play today. And he tried his best to reach out to every single student. And I think this just speaks to how hard music teachers work and how tragic it is that so many of them have to find new careers due to the budget cuts in multiple schools across the district. This budget cut also leads to students not being given the opportunity to explore the music that they otherwise would have the chance to. Music is a huge part of self-expression, and students aren't given the chance to have this opportunity, the same opportunity that I had. Another huge part of my music career in high school was jazz band, which I just started this year. Originally, I am a very anxious person, so when I started jazz band, I was pretty quiet and still reserved. But as I started playing more, the fundamental part of jazz that is improv gave me the chance to just let loose and play whatever I felt right there on the spot. And the more we take that away from students, the less of a chance they'll have to share that with the world. I think that the budget cuts to the music programs are unnecessary because music is such a big part of students' lives and changes them for the better. If students aren't given this chance to play the music that they want to, then many students will not be given the chance to express themselves in the truest form. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Richard Wagner.
So many compelling arguments for music in schools. Here's another one. Dostoevsky said, "Only beauty will save the world." And I think he's right about that. My name is Richard Wagner. I taught in the district for 25 years, both at elementary school and high school. I'm here to give you some questions about the literacy product that you're thinking of buying. I want to ask you to seek alternatives to the corporate sponsored science of reading, and then also to seek out references, teachers who are in these districts who are using these products to see if they're really all they're cracked up to be. This is a huge decision, right? You're investing millions of dollars of our taxpayers' money. You're investing a decade at least of time and thousands of students. And so this is the decision I think that you'll be remembered for. So I'm really happy and I want to applaud your wisdom on pausing the vote and pausing the decision to consider more things. I want to tell you two quick stories. One story was back in the 1890s when human beings wanted to fly like the birds with powered flight. Right, and so they thought the science of flight at the time was, oh, birds fly by flapping their wings, we'll build contraptions that flap wings. And so they built these planes with either engines on or people with pedaling, and people would pedal very, very fast, and they'd push these contraptions off cliffs or down hills, and they wouldn't fly, they would just crash. They built bigger and bigger engines. Still, everything just crashed. Why? Because the airplanes were not built on sound principles of aviation and how flight really works. Second story is the story of a man who had a big headache and he just felt this pressure in his head and it was just driving him crazy, and all he could think about was, boy, if I could just get rid of this pressure, it would be wonderful. So he took out a drill and he drilled a hole in his head and he died. Right. What killed him? What killed him wasn't the drill. It was this bad idea that he thought, oh, if I drill a hole in my head, it will relieve me of my headache instead of killing me. It didn't matter what brand his drill was or what gauge his drill bit was. He died because he had a wrong idea about headaches. All right. I sent you the board several times a video that I made. I just posted on YouTube. It's not very professional at all. I'm just asking a few questions about language acquisition. Do we really need to teach phonics? Is this how people learn how to read? I hope that you'll take a look at that and consider that in your decision. I hope that you seek alternatives. There are people who are outside of the canon, outside of the status quo of researchers. One is Stephen Krashen, who's a wonderful person. I'll send you a link to one of his videos. And the other is a guy by the name of Frank Smith, who I stole a lot of my stuff for the video. Secondly, I'm hoping that you also you don't talk to administrators, you don't talk to the salespeople who are trying to sell you these products. You send emails to random teachers, asking them if they see the efficacy, if they see good things happening or not. I did this a few years ago because you know that the district has this this history of buying bright shiny objects and then throwing them away after they're done playing with them. We bought something called the Curriculum Companion from the CISA up near Green Bay. At the time to email just random teachers at high schools. None of them said they were using it. All of them said, no, we don't even use this stuff. So apparently Madison Metropolitan School District bought a product that nobody was using. And again, it cost us all this momentum of building our own curriculums and all of that.
I'm sorry, your time's up.
My time's up? Okay, well, thanks for listening, everyone. Have a lovely evening.
Our next speaker is Cameron Craig.
Hi, my name is Cameron Craig. My pronouns are they, them, and I'm currently a sophomore at what is soon to be Val Phillips Memorial High School. Throughout my life, I've been thankful to be successful within the arts, performing multiple stage, musical, and choral shows each year since elementary school, within and outside of MMSD, including producing melodies and adding harmonies entirely over Zoom. I've also worked with the HRC, GSAFE, Bleed Shamelessly, and many other incredible activists for a variety of causes, including you, the MMSD School Board, to allot $200,000 to menstrual products in middle and high schools. My passion for the work I do comes from 4 outstanding individuals who I've been lucky to call my teachers and mentors over the last 11 years. Mary Rasmussen, Asta Sepetes, David Olson, and Sean Weber McMahon. These 4 artists have dedicated more time and passion than anyone else I know to ensuring that we as students have a successful career ahead of us, not just as musicians, but as people, giving me the passion I plan to carry on for throughout my life. They've offered time out of their day to offer me private coaching for auditions I had coming up, despite all of the effort it would cause. But throughout my many years of music, I've seen these individuals, as well as others in both orchestra and band, face countless struggles from their district. Their continual loss of funding while working at multiple schools, with added uncertainty of their program surviving past that school year, and a lack of time to plan for their constant lessons, all of which lead to extreme stress on them as creators. Believe me when I say that we as students notice, and we don't blame them or our schools for any of it. Within 24 hours of hearing of this movement, I sit before you to tell you how much this affects us. We see districts across the state creating performing arts schools while we continuously cut middle school choirs, hurting not only future high school programs, but reducing the already small amount of time these students have to pursue the arts to a very devastating level. We see 5 music teachers having left their jobs in less than 3 months, with nobody daring to take their places because they see our faults. We see music teachers who each teach many separate classes, each with a different level every hour, overworked, most teaching at multiple schools, attempting to rebuild our failed music programs. But we see no innovation in the department, not from lack of trying from students, parents, teachers, and school staff, but because we don't even know if our classes will exist next year, making it really hard to improve. When I tell you that general music, choir, chorale, and concert choir are the reasons I'm getting through school, believe me. There's a reason I chose to take choir as a class the same semester as I TA'd it, not for a time filler, but because there's no safer place to me than the environment that these brilliant people have created for me to thrive. But they can't keep living with the severe burnout that we force them to work with daily, which led 3 of 4 of the aforementioned teachers to leave the district. My demands of you are clear. Increase your allocation of funds to music and art departments throughout our districts. Increase the planning and prep time given to these teachers. Commit 1.0 positions to these individuals. And please allow our music departments to thrive here in MMSD. I deserve to be listened to that, or when I say that for many students I know personally, it's life-saving. And even when it's not life-saving, it's the one true place within my school I truly belong as a queer and non-binary student. But the love and safety provided by the arts is being pushed aside because of a lack of time and money given to teachers across the district. Finally, thank you to everyone who has worked for our departments to thrive. Madison School Board, you can join them. But for now, thank you for listening.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ciji Lee. Next speaker, Sandra Brown.
Can you help me with the camera because I can't. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I guess I'm not on camera tonight.
You are.
Okay. So good evening. This is my second time before you. I am Sandra Brown. Those who don't remember, I'm the Vice President of Moses and a retired Madison Metropolitan School District educator, having served the district for 36 years. The well-being and success of our children is my primary passion. Tonight, I am speaking to you on behalf of Moses. Moses is an acronym for Madison Organizing for Strength, Equity, and Solidarity. Our mission is to build collective power to dismantle the systems of mass incarceration and mass supervision, and to eradicate the racial disparities in our communities that contribute to them. Our Racial Justice for All Children Task Force, which I co-chair, has a specific focus on measures to eradicate the childhood to school to prison pipeline. We recently adopted an official position to support the designation of ESSER 3 funds by Madison Metropolitan School District to support the continuation of and expansion of mental wellness and trauma support programs, BIPOC mental health care workers, anti-racist IEP support, adult support for children in crisis, Madison area out of school time programs with specific emphasis on community schools, summer school and after school programs, and programs to support replacement of exclusionary disciplines, specifically support and expansion of restorative justice services. We know our children have suffered increased severe trauma as a result of their isolation during the pandemic, even though the schools have done their utmost and utmost to support our scholars throughout this period. We believe the designation of the ESSER 3 funds to the areas enumerated are appropriate and essential to help recover from the serious impacts of the pandemic. Please, please, please refer to our written statement, which elaborates on the need for funding these efforts. I thank you this evening for this opportunity to share Moses's perspective tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Eliana Sauer.
Hello, my name is Eliana Sauer. I'm a current senior at what's soon to be Bell Phillips Memorial High School, and I have been doing music in MMSD for my entire life. Through kindergarten onwards, I have had amazing instructors who have fostered my passion for choir and for music in general. This year in particular, I was helped tremendously by Miss McMahon, who Cam Craig just mentioned, who helped me not only put together a theater program that was crumbling under us with no director, she also helped me choreograph the entire musical. Her support has been instrumental in my confidence building and in my love of school. Every day I go into the choir room and I'm just so excited to see my friends and to get to work on music in this group. Without this space, I honestly don't know where I would be. There are so many people just like me at Memorial and at all of the other high schools and middle schools in this district who feel the same way that I do, that music is their escape and that music is the best part of their day. It is inequitable and unacceptable to keep taking away these music classes from these students. Everyone deserves to have an opportunity to be in a space that feels like their own and where they can be unapologetically themselves. And for so many, music classes are these spaces. If we keep taking them away, people will continue to feel like they don't belong in our schools. And that's the opposite of what MMSD strives for. The only way to truly make all students feel welcomed is to make all students feel like they have a class and a place where they can be themselves. By continuing to take away music classes and by moving teachers around in the district, that space is getting harder and harder to find. In my time at Memorial, I've had 2 choir directors. The first one left for another district because she knew that she was about to be split between 2 schools. The fact that we're losing so many music educators because of this is simply unacceptable. We should be a district that music educators want to come to because there are so many passionate students waiting for them, not one where they feel like their job could be taken away from them at any minute. I implore you to rethink the decision of cutting funding for music programs and to consider moving more funding into music education so that our music programs can grow instead of continue to shrink. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Brandon Katarkas.
Hi, I'm Brady Katarkas. I'm 18 years old. I'm a senior at Memorial High School. And I just want to say that like this program is amazing. I'm in that band room like every day. There's so many kids who love it there. It's not just a place to play music. It's also like a place for kids to meet each other and come together. And there's always kids like eating their lunch in the band room, spending time with each other. It's just a community at this point. I know there's a lot of people in this program who really like put passion in their instrument or put passion in their voice or put passion into their strings. It's just, it's really uplifting to like be a part of that. And when I'm I play with the orchestra sometimes, like doing extra things, and I'm just in band and choir, and I just love those kids. So it's just so fun to be a part of something great, and the parents are so supportive. I remember a time a couple of years ago, I was just jamming with my friends in the auditorium, just playing, and the Latin Music Club came in, and I do not know how to play Latin music at all, but they were just like, no, come in. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be great. We'll teach you how to do it. And I had the best time with them. They just welcomed me with open arms. It was a great experience. And I feel like when you have a place to go and you feel like this is the thing that you really can express yourself with, a lot of the fear and anger I think a lot of kids face when they're going through high school kind of seems to fade, because it's just kids are learning to articulate themselves in a completely different way. It's amazing. And not only has this program really helped me feel like I can express myself and articulate the way I want to say things and be able to play what I want to play and do what I want to do. It became a place where like it feels like a hug. I feel like a lot of times the kids come into school and they're already having a bad day. And whenever I walk into that band room and hear the kids playing, it's just like this is all I could ever want. It's really a great space to be in. So I really think having a place to have that happen is necessary in schools. So.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Gail Stone. Okay, our final speaker, Araceli Esparza.
Wait a minute, you skipped me.
Is this Gail?
Here's Gail.
Okay,
Yep.
go ahead, Gail.
Okay, I'd like to speak about the 6.1 teaching positions slated to be cut at West High School, a school that is traditionally overcrowded. And the projection of 65 students leaving this coming fall will do nothing to eliminate the overpopulated hallways and classrooms. I lost my train. The French 4 class this coming fall is scheduled to have 41 students in it. Additionally, in this time of shortage of teachers, why are you getting rid of the Latin program that has a teacher and has students? I encourage you to support the people who are delivering the service, the ones who are educating our children. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Gail.
Thank
Our
you.
final speaker, Araceli Esparza.
Barbie, is she in the meeting? I don't see it.
No, I don't see her either. That ends the public appearances.
Okay.
I move that the Board of Education approve the minutes from the regular board meeting dated July 26, 2021.
Second.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm gonna pull that motion. News from around the district. Celebrating our staff, National School Social Worker Week was March 6th through 12th. On behalf of MMSD Board of Education, we extend thanks and appreciation to our school social workers for providing students, families, and schools with mental health, academic, and classroom support. You help make our communities better and stronger with the important work you do. Celebrating literacy. Middle school scholars across MMSD participated in the district-wide Battle of the Books during the week of March 7th. This reading competition quizzes students on literary elements from a list of pre-selected books. For months, teams of 2 to 4 students read and studied each book, retaining information about the plot, characters, theme, setting, and more. School-wide battles began late February, determining school grade level champions, who then moved on to the district-wide competition. The 7th grade team from Cherokee Heights Middle School finished in first place, with the Toki Middle School 7th grade team finishing second. Congratulations to all who participated. Celebrating student excellence, Antonio Thomas Memorial High School senior was recently awarded the Bucks and Johnson Controls Historical Black Colleges and Universities HBCUs scholarship. Antonio was one of 2 students selected statewide to receive the renewable $4,000 scholarship, which will go towards tuition or room and board at an HBCU in honor of his excellence throughout high school. The scholarship also provides recipients with mentors and internship opportunities throughout college with Johnson Controls and the Milwaukee Bucks. And now the superintendent's announcements and reports.
Thank you, Board Chair. Muldrow and all the board members. It gives me great pleasure to come to you tonight with one of our very own who's going to be giving us an update in terms of where we are with the big ideas campaign. We've been getting a lot of positives about it right now, back from individuals who have participated in the project. And so without any further ado, I definitely want to turn this over. And I also, before I turn it over, I just want to say that we just took a mental health day for our students and for our staff, and it was very much needed, and hearing from the staff very much appreciated, and hearing that from the students and from some parents too. And I want to thank you as a board for looking way out when we made this decision to take a mental health day. That was really important for students and for staff. So thank you so much for that. And now we're going to go ahead and hear big ideas. Leah, it's up to you. Lee?
Thank you, Dr. Jenkins. And thank you for the space on this Tuesday evening to just share this awesome work that has been happening for almost a year now since we launched both the Big Ideas campaign and the Reimagine Schools and Classrooms work. Barb, next slide. So I just want to refresh us of just the why behind the creation of the Big Ideas campaign using the ESSER2 funds. First, we started this campaign because we believe our staff and our students and our community have the innovative ideas that can help address learning loss brought to us by the COVID-19 pandemic. This infusion of federal funds really gave us an amazing opportunity to try new things and to test out new educational experiences that really address persistent inequities in our community. The campaign and the process embodies our values of honoring creativity and agency of our amazing, amazing staff and our community. We believe that those closest to the problem have many of the solutions. And so by lifting up their ideas last April, we were able to really find some pretty amazing solutions that could drive success amongst our students and our staff. And then finally, this process promotes building small, leaning into new designs, learning fast, and making intentional decisions. We know that the more ideas we try, the more learnings we're going to gain that will help us make strategic decisions that will support student learning. We also know that when we build small and test rough prototypes, we are less attached to these ideas and more focused on learning and outcomes. We also know that we need to gather information about the desirability, the feasibility, and the viability of these ideas. And so again, by building small, learning fast, we're able to make intentional decisions around that those components of the design work. You can go to the next slide, Barb. So just a quick review of the timeline since it's been a while. July 1st, after the board approved the Big Ideas budget in June, we launched. Some teams literally July 1 were ready to go. In October, we had teams give updates to SLT about what's going on. In November, we did an Innovation Council training with members of MMSD in our community that are now trained to ask really awesome questions and give feedback to our design teams to push their work forward. And then the different big ideas pitched to that Innovation Council the 1st, 8th, and 15th of December to present their project status and really gain some amazing feedback to help them continue to push this work forward. In March, we had project updates to council, to SLT, and now to you all. And in May, they will come back to our Innovation Council to pitch, to make recommendations to council on whether or not these ideas should receive funding and support through the 22-23 school year. And then we will continue to fund and support the ideas selected through June 30th of 2023. Next slide. So just wanted to kind of ground us again in the liberatory design process that is being used to drive this work. So Big Ideas came in at the ideation phase, and that's where they were selected. Over the course of the past many months since the design work started to be tested, we have been working with teams, Rocket, I should say, has been working with teams through the ideate, prototype, test, reflect phase, or what we call the build, measure, learn cycle. Our Rocket coaches meet with teams between every 2 and 3 weeks to review any data and evidence they've collected, to talk about the design work, and then to reflect on what's working, what's not, and make intentional decisions to try in the next cycle of this work. And so this work is still happening today and will continue through May as teams are kind of figuring out and making the best prototype that they can. Next slide. So semester 1 progress. As mentioned in the timeline, each team has created and tested their prototype, and then they've gotten support with the Rocket team throughout this. They presented to the Innovation Council and got incredible feedback. So thank you to our Innovation Council for taking the time to do that. I know it was a big time lift for them. They have navigated the ESSER funding process. A huge shout out to our budget and accounting team for working with each of these teams to just navigate the federal stipulations, MMSD policies. And currently there's only one team that had asked for an increase from their original budget, and that is currently being sorted out. And I just want to really highlight what the engagement in the big ideas looks like by numbers. So participants who have sat on design teams, those are the individuals that are really working on building the prototype and planning for testing. We have had 70 adults throughout the district and our community and 29 students who are actively a part of that design work. The prototypes that are currently happening in MMSD have served 537 adults and 1,159 students. And remember, these are small scale tests that are happening. And so we're just really proud of the active engagement in this work. Next slide. So this semester, there are 11 of 14 teams that will continue to test and iterate. As you may remember, back in April, we had the goal set of having 10 ideas selected in the finalists, but there were so many amazing ideas that the judges actually selected 14. And right now we currently have 11 still going. We shared out our progress to the council and to cabinet, and they submitted draft budgets to help budget and accounting really prepare for the budget book for the 22-23 school year. And so we've worked with teams and with budget and accounting on that work, and we've had 11 draft budgets submitted. And then in May, there will be a decision point for extending projects. The teams will present to our Innovation Council that will then make a recommendation to Dr. Jenkins and Dr. McGregory on the best path forward and which ideas will be funded for the 22-23 school year. Next slide, please. So beyond just the overall kind of process, I'm going to dig into each of these amazing projects. I first want to thank the number of staff that have leaned into this work above their normal jobs. This is something that they have been engaging in on nights, on weekends, during prep hours, if they have prep hours. So they deserve a huge thank you for their amazing work that they have put into driving excellence in Madison. Next slide, Barb. So we have 3 high school projects. We have Shabazz project-based learning. We have the barbershop, which is the intro to barbering course, and then In Pursuit of Sunshine, which is the student-directed course. I do want to call out that all of this information is highlighted in the appendix on this document if you want to read more about it. The project-based learning project, just some fun highlights. There have been over 60 field trips and community connections that have happened as a part of these 5 learning labs that happen every afternoon for the Shabazz students. Students have submitted their request for learning labs for the following year and have reported that at about 87% that this has been a really engaging experience. The barbershop has had tons of demand and will continue if funded for next year based on just demand from students. And currently have 17 students enrolled from last semester and this semester. Reach out to me if you want to get your hair cut. Starting after spring break, students are trained enough that they can trim you up if need be. And then In Pursuit of Sunshine is an independent study project led by students. And one of the really amazing things that this group did is, as a part of their project, they actually created a documentary that really showcases our need for climate justice. This group of students have just been incredibly motivated. They have learned so much around budgeting and project management, and it has been a really great way to test out a new independent study student-led project. Next slide. The middle school projects are the Akira Recording Studio, Youth Action, and All In. As we have heard students talk about the need for art, Akira Recording Studio is exactly that. They are running a recording studio within their school that an average of 5 students a day are using to practice recording, sound engineering, podcasts, music, beats, you name it. And just a few weeks ago, they got all their technology, and so they're in the process of setting up the official space. Over the first semester, they were using satellite spaces within Toki. The Youth Action Team is another student-led project that is really giving students at Toki Middle School, and hopefully other middle schools if extended to next year, a way of learning project management and budgeting. And this team, actually, one of their big projects is working on creating a more gender inclusive locker room. And they have worked with our building services team. So shout out to them for working with students on this project. And it is just a really great way of highlighting how when we bring students into the work and give them the skills in project management and budgeting, they can drive lasting change in their schools. And the last project is All In, and that is the last middle school project, I should say. This is a project that is being run by a community member from UW-Madison and MMSD to really think differently about a middle school learning experience. 14 students from 5 middle schools are currently attending school at the Mti Youth Center on East Washington. And it's very convenient because it's across from Lapham, and so they're able to use some of the services from Lapham. Next slide. We then have 3 elementary school projects: the anti-racist, civilly active student design curriculum at Sandburg, parent liaison at Mendota, and the wraparound approach at Thoreau Elementary. Sandburg Elementary is running an incredibly cool student co-designed curriculum with 3rd through 5th grade students. 39 students were chosen as leaders using a different criteria of what leadership is. So it's not just about grades and academics, but it's about showing leadership and influence in the classroom. They got together at the end of summer with their families to talk about this program, work together, and weekly these 39 student leaders work with their teachers around curriculum and how to be leaders within their classroom. The curriculum actually impacts every single student at Sandburg in 3rd through 5th grade. The Parent Liaison project is a summer project, so it has already happened this summer. Our parent liaisons are normally 10-month employees. And so this idea actually gave the summer liaison funds to work over the summer. As in normal experiences, we need our school-based staff connected to our families in the summer, and especially because of the pandemic. And so Mendota's parent liaison, Ebony McKinley, and if you haven't met her, she is just a force to be reckoned with. Incredible incredible staff member that we have. She was able to work with many of our families that were new to Madison and into the Mendota community to help them prepare for their time at Mendota. This experience allowed Mendota to really connect with these families and then go back and connect with the staff at the school so that they were ready to start with students day one and not have to spend time learning about them and not being prepared for these students right away. The final elementary school project is the Thoreau wraparound approach. This was another program that started in the summer. They did many home visits, they had town halls with families and other parent events. And this was really to help our families of color at Thoreau Elementary feel more connected and to Thoreau and feel like they have access and support from the school. Currently, this project is in a pause phase due to some contract needs, but they are working out the bid process to find a Madison organization that can help them continue this work. Next slide. And then these are district-wide ideas. One of the ideas you've already heard about, Mission Possible Robots. This idea is just so fantastic. It is connecting our students, particularly that are homebound, to our classroom communities via robots. We have 7 students currently that are using the robots. We have gotten immense feedback from students and families stating that the robots have helped them connect more with their school communities. In fact, one of our students who has been unable to attend school in person at all made a friend via the robot, followed her class to recess in the halls. And to me, that is what it is about. And so right now, this project is actually really working on the feasibility side because we know it's desirable on how to support our staff with knowing how to better incorporate robots into their classrooms. Also some learnings about crayons on the floor. We just got to be careful with crayons getting stuck in the wheel, but all of those are really helpful when you start small to work through so that they can create some really incredible trainings for staff. And then finally, Mti Centers, which is an idea that is focused on our staff. We had a cohort in the fall. We have one happening right now. Over 400 staff have participated. And the feedback that Carrie Motoviloff has gotten on this important training has been incredibly positive. And I look forward to joining the next cohort in the fall. Next slide, Barb. So let's talk about the Big Ideas budget. We have set aside now $2 million for Big Ideas, parsing it out into 2 phases. Phase 1 is this current school year, so from July of 2021 until June of 2022. We originally had earmarked $2 million for this, but at this point, our actual spending is looking to be around $500,000. And then our phase 2, which would be next year, we had earmarked 3.5 million, but based on how these projects are running and using the evidence that they've collected around funding, it's looking more like it's going to be about 1.5 million to continue to test and scale promising ideas. So why haven't these projects been able to spend this money? Well, a couple of things. Staffing, as we all know, has been incredibly difficult. So some of the projects we wanted to hire project managers, LTEs, and that was challenging. As you can expect, COVID created challenges for teams to plan, test, and reflect, and work in those regular basis. So some projects were, although still moving, were not kind of taking it to the next level, especially with purchasing supplies. Supply chain shortages made purchases and building projects slow down. Staffing capacity made it difficult to keep momentum of projects at full speed. Again, as I mentioned, these teams have been incredible with pushing through. Even after working every single period a day, they still want to get on afternoon meetings after their contract time to talk about and plan for this work. And then there are certain MSD processes and parameters that made moving quickly and nimbly challenging. Next slide. So that's the big ideas portion of our innovation funds with the ESSER 2. I want to now celebrate our Reimagining Schools and Classrooms project. So we had earmarked $4 million. At this point, we have spent $3.1 million of the money set aside, with $900,000 planned to be spent either this spring or next year. Some of that is the building project. Schools were given the workbooks at the end of July, or I should say wish list workbooks at the end of July. They submitted them by November. And here's the breakdown for support to our schools. We have purchased at this point $2 million in new furniture, flexible furniture that can be moved around and just create really robust learning spaces. We have spent $695,000 at this point on building service projects. I need to shout William Givens and Alyssa Brown for their work with schools. We have playground upgrades, Wi-Fi extensions. We have amphitheaters and pavilions coming for outdoor learning spaces. So much really amazing stuff. Supplies and resources to accelerate learning. We have spent $289,000 for new STEAM, curricular materials, books, and apparel. Some of that apparel actually is to go with outdoor learning spaces because we want every student to be prepared to be outside. Jackets, rain boots, etc., to help with robust learning. Musical instruments, as we literally just heard from so many students and families and community members about investing in the arts and specifically music, we have spent $70,000 on new musical instruments for band and orchestra for our students to make it more equitable and accessible. And then we have spent $35,000 on new technology to drive learning in our schools. I want to shout out our team that has made this happen. Dana, Sherry, Alyssa, William, Jennifer Waldner, Ruth, Ross, you have all been incredible in making this happen. It was a massive lift to do all of this ordering and tracking. And so I want to thank you. And I know our schools will deeply benefit from this work. And that is my exciting ESSER 2 innovation update to all of you. And I will open it up to questions.
Well, first, Lee, let me just say you thanked everyone, but we didn't get a chance to thank you. And you have been just totally amazing keeping track of this. Over 70 staff, community people, 30-some students, over 1,000 and some individuals impacted by this. And you have been on point. We started out saying we wanted to do 10 projects. There were so many wonderful projects. We expanded it to 14. So I just wanted to say to you publicly, we could not have done this without your leadership. And you're amazing, just like these amazing projects that we have going on. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Dr. Jenkins. Board Member Vandermeulen, I see your hand.
Yes, let me my virtual hand. First, I'd like to thank Big Idea for the robot.
Nikki, we can't hear you.
Sorry about that, Ananda. I want to thank the Big Idea projects for the robots. As someone who was in the infancy on special education and accommodations, I never thought I'd see the day where kids who could not be in the classroom could actively participate with their peers without feeling like they were an afterthought. And I think that is absolutely wonderful. And please, please, please keep it up. My second question is on our liaison project. I know our liaisons work 10 months of the year. I'm wondering, are they also getting benefits from the district, or are they separate?
That is going to be a question for HR. I do not have knowledge on that.
Could someone get it for me at some point?
Yes, we'll definitely get back to you.
And then my last question is on the Big Idea. To work more collaboratively, is it possible that when you show the finalists for the projects to Dr. Jenkins and Dr. McGregory, you also can show it to the board at the same time. I think that would create a better collaborative approach. So that way we can all see it at once and it's not like, oh, here's this and we came up with it. We could actually blend it and create it together. If that's possible.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And one of the great things is that we're trying out is actually pre-recorded pitches so that we can actually put together a video for everyone.
That is absolutely wonderful. Thank you. Those are all my comments.
And could I say to board member Vandermiller, I would love for you to join us. The only thing I tell you, prepare yourself. It's so tight between how awesome these projects are and deciding, just like we narrowed it down, it was amazing. So we would love to do this together. I think we should do things like this.
That would be wonderful. I'd love the opportunity.
Board Member Morelli.
Thank you, board member. Thank you, board president Modro. Lee, thank you so much for this beautiful and inspiring presentation. I have been a big fan of the big ideas since its inception. I think when it was established, I was leaving the district, and it's just great that it's, we're in 2022 and you're still on in full force, that it didn't get shelved somewhere. I have a couple of questions. One is, can you talk a little bit about the interaction with the Innovation Council, what that is and how people get to be a part of it? And then also would love to hear from you, like, how can this board, aside from voting yes on a budget line item, like what can we do to lift up the work or highlight the work? I know when we had the student, the robot, inclusion in the classrooms, I posted it on my Facebook, but what else can we do to lift up the work?
Awesome. So first, lifting up the work, we're actually working with the communications team to actually do individual project highlights. So we're going to go and hopefully film and take photographs and interview some of the people a part of it so that we can have little stories that can be shared. So that's absolutely, please share, tweet it, post it on social media, etc. And then getting back to your question on Innovation Council, this is a council of 7 individuals that have a lot of training in the liberatory design process or bring a role experience perspective into this work and in the district to help really these teams think critically about how to navigate. So whether it is, hey, you should make this connection with CNI, they're doing a project similar, or have you thought about, they bring that to the team so that the teams can really think critically and push their work forward. One of our members is actually our AmFam partner at the Institute for Corporate and Social Impact, who works on education and has a wealth of knowledge and actually connections, so that one of the roles is actually saying, hey, I've got this group of people in Atlanta that are doing something similar, you should connect with them. The robots, we connected them to UW Robotics, things like that to really drive the work.
That's awesome, Lee. Thank you so much for all the update. And did you all do the NEP, the liberatory design through the NEP for the National Equity Project? I just want to, go ahead. Sorry. Oh,
I was going to say it's a great training.
Yeah, I just wanted to lift up that partnership and that work, because I'm part of the first cohort at DPI that went through the training just now in early winter, and I think there were like 8 of us that did the training. There'll be additional 10 or 12 folks that are also going through the training. I just wanted to say that was like a beautiful and inspiring professional learning opportunity. So I'm really glad that you all are taking advantage of that. Awesome. Thank you so much, Lee. Thanks, the team.
Absolutely.
Board Member Castro.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing this update, Lee. I definitely appreciate your work and everyone else involved in this work. I have one specific question regarding to the wraparound transformative justice project at Thoreau. I'm wondering what if if the board can get an update on what we're learning specifically from that program and opportunities for other schools to also employ that model.
Absolutely. So the Thoreau model was really, there's a couple pieces to it. First, it is the home, the connection to the home and to families, and really strengthening that connection. And so through home visits, family events, really making it so that our families, specifically of color, feel like they have access and support from our schools. And so there was over 50 home visits engaged in by that team. The other thing that was really powerful is they actually worked with families to create schedules for the students that actually met the students where they were at. So that especially during, COVID, because I'd like to say COVID was fully over at this point, but it allowed students and schools to kind of come together and really check in. What do you need? Where are you at? The other piece of this program is around staff training, around culturally relevant pedagogy, around how do you engage with families, and really doing a lot of training to support the staff at Thoreau. Currently, that project had to pause just from a partnership contract. So Dan Davidson and Laura Glub there are actually working on getting a new community partner to support this work. And I will have another update for you all kind of when they land on that new partnership. But yeah, Savion, actually, as you mentioned, all of these ideas, I think, are really important models for us to think about. How do we not take these just at this school, but how do we then take our learning and support other schools with these projects, these models, et cetera. And so teams are working on thinking about growing the programs over the spring to think about also for next year.
Thank you so much. I was very inspired by how many families are now involved and just thinking about correcting the history. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Board Member Gomez, sorry. Board Member Gomez Schmidt.
Thank you. And like everyone else, I just want to say thank you, Lee, for the work that has gone into this and really lifting up these projects that are coming from the school level and from the community level to make a difference for students and families and staff. I just wanted to highlight really quick the Mti Centers and Nehemiah project that is training staff in the Black History for a New Day course. I have really appreciated this and just want to also recognize that it's not only an MMSD thing, but a lot of people in the community can access this Black History for a New Day course. And I have been participating myself and have really appreciated the knowledge and the expertise and the experience with that. The other thing I wanted to ask a question on is just the funding. And I understand the challenges that we've had with being able to spend the funds that were earmarked for this. I'm curious, with the decrease of 1.5 million for phase 1 and 2 million for phase 2, what are we doing with these funds, these ESSER funds, and where else are they being reinvested if we can't do it for these particular projects?
Great question. And that is a perfect question for our amazing CFO, Ross, and I know Dr. McGregory as well, who are working on making sure we leave nothing on the table. Ross?
Sure, thank you, Lee. I can try here. Thank you for that, Lee. You're correct, Chris. We do have a number of priorities coming. Top. Okay. Thank you, Lee. Yes, we do have a number of priorities that we're going to be bringing back in the ESSER schedule for the 22-23 budget book. And any amounts that we're reinvesting will be outlined on that schedule for the board to see next month.
Ross, you sounded really faded, Ross.
Oh, sorry about that. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. I got to reset. Okay. My apologies. Any and all adjustments to the ESSER schedule will be part of the April presentation when we talk about the budget book preparations and operations work group, and any reinvestments we outlined on that schedule at that time.
Thank you, Ross. Appreciate that.
Lee Easter, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. My only question for you and Dr. Jenkins is, it would be really helpful for the board to hear from Rocket, to hear from the actual folks who are engaging in this process in order to strengthen it, and to hear from young people who have benefited from this work. And so I think it's really helpful to hear that you all are documenting that work. How else can the board become aware of the effectiveness of these projects, and how these partnerships are working and developing?
That is a great question. So teams are actually collecting data right now. They all have data collection plans that were built actually off of logic models. So in May, when and the pitches will be recorded, but I will have another comprehensive report of the data that comes out of this work and more of the influence and impact that the projects have had. So that will definitely come. And yes, I would absolutely love for team members to, and specifically our youth engaged in these projects, to be a part of presenting. And so I think that as we kind of build out some of the communications and another update to the board, it will not be me as the focus.
Thank you so much. I think my last question in terms of, how we manage these projects moving forward is, I don't think it's, I think we're all aware that these projects were designed to support students in returning to school after or during the pandemic. And so the fact that the pandemic was a major barrier to some of what we were able to do makes me think, how do we factor the pandemic in terms of supporting our partners in being successful and supporting our young people? And so I just want to say that I think, as we invest ESSER funding in supporting our students, supporting our partners, and being able to connect with our young people and, enhance the experiences our kids have at school, is pretty complicated right now. And I think that there's a lot of work we can do to strengthen our ability to see these projects be successful and see our young people have access to these opportunities. Board Member Pearson, I see your hand, and then I also see Board Member Morelli's hand.
Yeah, thank you, Ollie. Can you guys hear me? I had a similar, just a comment. I guess I'll just make it a comment instead of a question. Just more so about like what we've learned in the process. I know that the barriers were stated there, and how we, in moving forward and making the investments, like how we will utilize what we've learned to streamline the process and make the process a lot easier for our community partners and moving forward. So just a comment, and it's along the lines with you, Ollie.
Thank you so much, Board Member Pearson. Board Member Morelli?
Yeah, thank you so much, President Moudreau. And I'm really sorry. I think I got so excited about all that was happening. I forgot to make one more comment, Lee. One of the things that I just wanted to lift up in a connection, the city committee, that the education committee that is sponsored by the city was really interested in learning more about the big ideas, as you know, and finding opportunities. So, currently or in the future, sorry, I got really loud. Sorry about that. But projects that align with transportation, housing, homelessness, mental health, and digital inclusion, and youth employment are things that the committee is looking to both align with city and county bodies of work, but also potentially align with budgets. So please, keep the committee in mind for future for future bodies of work and future projects that are coming through. Thank you.
Absolutely. I actually, just to let you know, I've been working with Dr. McGregory on sharing actually those projects, and the city has been following up. And I do want to highlight actually that the barbershop, Into the Barbering project actually has connected with the city with an apprenticeship with JP's Hair Design. And so using some of our ESSER funds, these youth are going to JP's, and that has really been spearheaded by Cindy Green and her team. So lots of great stuff happening.
You were making this last meeting really beautiful. Thank you so much.
Nama, would you like to ask any questions or speak to what's going on with Big Ideas?
Yeah, no, I don't think I have any questions, but I think this all looks really great. I'm really excited to see this all being implemented and seeing students thrive in this new environment. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Nama. All right, moving on, reports on items that proceeded through the instruction work group held on March 7th, 2022. Board Member Pearson.
Yeah, thank you. So during our instructional work group meeting, we received a presentation on the K-5 literacy and biliteracy core instructional materials and the process and the recommendations. So during that presentation, I really enjoyed hearing from teachers and other staff and educational coaches who are part of the selection committee, but also those who have implemented the pilot program of one of the programs that they were looking at. And so, yeah, and then we also received an update on the academic plan and the process and its progress. Thank you.
Reports on items that proceeded through operations work group held March 14th, 2022. Board Member Carusi.
Thank you. Before I launch into my quick report, I just want to thank everybody who made public appearances today and talked to us about the budget in terms of the arts, particularly all the young people who spoke to us. We can't respond to your comments, but I just want to let you know that your stories matter and they help us.
You gotta get a little, you gotta move it closer.
Oh, get closer? Okay. Should I say that again or are we okay? Okay. I will get really close to my mic here. I want to start by thanking everybody who made public appearances tonight to talk to us about the budget, specifically in terms of the arts and allocations. We can't respond to your comments directly, but your stories and your examples matter and help us do our jobs. So thank you. We had a meeting devoted entirely to the budget and operations work group this month. We talked about revenue and specifically about some debt defeasance that will both free up some revenue for us to use in this fiscal year or the coming school year's budget, and also will hopefully help to lessen our tax burden a little bit. We then talked about health insurance plan design for the coming year, no changes. We talked about equity investments. We discussed summer school, and then we went into early approvals for some of those equity investments, which we will be voting on tonight. So,
thank you so much, Board Member Carusi. Action items that proceeded. Action items that proceeded through the operations work group held on March 14th, 2022. Board Member Carusi.
oh, I didn't talk about that.
Oh, okay. I move that the Board of Education approve the 2022 MMSD summer semester model and the 2022-2023 summer school budget in the amount of $3,778,098 per the attached schedule.
Second.
Any discussion? Board Member Vandermeulen.
I think we need to raise the pay of our subs, not just during the year, but it's covered school especially.
Nikki, we can't hear you.
Sorry about that. I'll let you get the hang of this. I think that we had discussed increasing the budget at our subs during the year, but I think in future budgets, we have to also increase the pay during summer school for our students to truly get the best services possible.
Thank you, Board Member Vandermeulen. Any further discussion? Nama, your advisory vote.
Aye.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0.
Point of order question, yeah? Are we, on the equity ones, going to vote on each project separately for the early approvals? Okay.
Okay. I move that the Board of Education grant early approval to the following 2022-2023 budget requests for budget requests to facilitate timely ordering of long lead time materials / equipment, or to accelerate necessary planning for summer and fall programming. A, an increase of $89,000 to student and staff supports budget for behavioral health in schools, BHS, expanding using ESSER funding for 2022-23. B, an increase of $75,000 to the student staff support budget, behavioral health, schools, BHS, expansion pilot using ESSER funding for 2022-2023. An increase of $15,000 to student and staff support budget for bounce back expansion using ESSER funding for 2022-2023. D, an increase of $60,000 to the student and staff support budget for behavioral health in the schools, BHS, contract repurporting using ESSER funding for 2022-2023, an increase of $120,000 to the student and staff support budget for a restorative justice program manager using ESSER funding for 2022-2023. F, an increase of $55,750 the student and staff support budget for mental health groups, Journey, Heart, Face Kids / Face Kids, using ESSER funding for 2022-2023. G, an increase of $290,000 to the student and staff support budget for school-based wellness center planners using ESSER funding for 2022-2023. H, an increase of $400,000 to student and staff supports budget for high schools seeking safety pilot expansion using ESSER funding for 2022-23. An increase of up to $1,300,000 to the summer school budget for a summer arts academy using ESSER funding for 2022-2023. J, an increase of $396,000 to the secondary program budget for additional credit recovery support using ESSER funding for 2022-2023. K, an increase of support of $850,000 to the instructional technology budget for an expansion of Madison Promise virtual program using ESSER funding for 2022-2023. An increase of $2,173,000 to the health services budget for additional FTE contact tracing, and PPE using ESSER funding for 2022-2023. M, an increase of $110,000 to the budget planning and accounting budget for grants accountant / compliance position using ESSER funding for 2022-2023. And N, an increase of $100,000 to the state and federal program budget for an ESSER project manager using ESSER funding for 2022-2023.
Second.
Now, do we separate them out?
Yes.
I'd like,
because I want to recognize that Chris put her hand up. Board Member Gomez Schmidt.
Chris, do you mind turning your mic?
Sorry, I will get this at one point. I would like to make a motion
Bring
to,
it closer.
I would like to make a motion to separate item K, expansion of Madison Virtual Promise Program, from the slate of early budget approvals.
I need to know if somebody's gonna
Second.
Okay. Board Member Vandermeulen?
I also make a motion for to add, to separate letter N on the ESSER project management.
Okay. Second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did Nikki separated N as in Nancy?
Yes.
Yes.
The 100,000 to state and federal programs budgets?
To the ESSER project manager, yes.
Okay, thank you.
So what you're saying right now is that we can separate these out and vote on the rest? Okay. Are there any other separations before we vote on the remaining motions?
For discussion purposes, I'd like to discuss the Arts Academy, but I forgot what letter it is.
I don't think it matters what letter it is. I do think that you.
Letter I.
Do you want to pull it out or do you want to ask questions about it before we vote on it?
I'd like to pull it out.
Okay.
That's letter I.
So we'll separate I as well. Nama, your advisory vote?
Aye.
All those in favor? Motion carries. All right. Chris, you were the first person to separate out. You want to speak to your separation?
Sure. First, I'd like to start by expressing my support for a virtual option at the secondary level. We started that this school year, and I'd like to thank Dr. McCrae for his work on the Madison Promise program over this past year and for the work going into to talk about this expansion. Before we vote to expand this program, I do feel like I need more information on how the current program is functioning and the potential consequences of expanding this program by 10 FTE with non-recurring ESSER funding. And so the information that I think is important for us to consider would be enrollment numbers for this year in both semester 1 and 2, attendance data, staffing model, and a survey of families, students, and staff about their experience with the virtual program. And just one more thing, I guess while I understand this is not intended to be a magnet school or a charter school or anything like that, policy 10100 also covers other programs that draw from our overall attendance areas. And so I guess I'd like to see this come back to a work group meeting for further discussion. So I'm going to make a motion to table this item once we've discussed and if there are any other.
I would second the motion on table.
Nikki, wait, I just want to.
I said I will make a motion to table. That's my intent.
Thought that was the motion.
Once everybody has a chance to.
I'm sorry,
add
I
it.
misunderstood that.
Is there further discussion or do you want Chris to make the motion?
I was just going to put in a few comments, if I may.
So Board Member Vandermeulen and then Board Member Carusi.
I want to also say I support a virtual option, especially for students with special needs, fragile health. And also there's some that virtual school works better. People learn in multiple ways. I just don't feel I have enough time to discuss it. This is too big of a situation to just focus on early approval. I want to get this done. I want to get it done right. And I think in a work group, I would be thrilled to just get some of the information as Chris has asked for, which would be similar to what I would have asked for as well. And then I'd be very happy to vote for it after I see the information, but without it, I'm just not there yet. And my other point is on letter N, or do you want me to stick to K?
I'm like, we're going to keep them separate.
Okay. Then nothing further.
Board Member Carusi.
Thank you. I want to echo the comments made already. I'm really grateful for the fact that MMSD has a robust virtual option, especially during COVID. And I actually appreciate that this is being extended down into the elementary grades. I'm hopeful that doing that will help to alleviate some of the disruption that happened this fall when we had to, at the last minute, institute virtual options for elementary school students whose parents were concerned about sending them to a brick and mortar school in the middle of a pandemic. So while I'm very much in favor of having a virtual option during the pandemic, I am equally, if not more, concerned about using one-time ESSER dollars to fund the expansion of a program and create 10 permanent FTE that in a couple of years we will have to pull out of somewhere. I think we're just creating a problem that a future board in 2 years is going to have to grapple with. And when you think about the comments we heard today about the allocation issues at our high schools, it could be much worse trying to find 10 additional FTE in the budget in 2 years to make those positions permanent. So I really want to talk about the longer term plans for Madison Promise. I'm fully in favor of an ESSER funded alternative to ensure that all families are able to have their kids in a safe school situation during the pandemic. The longer term implications of this, I think, are something the board needs to think about now and not push into the future. So I would support tabling it for that reason and having a more robust discussion.
Thank you, Board Member Carusi. Board Member Castro.
Yeah, thank you so much. First and foremost, thank you, Dr. McCray, for bringing this for our approval. And just want to say that I fully support this program. Earlier this afternoon, we received enrollment numbers and projected enrollment numbers for next year should this expand. I think this is a situation where we have to walk and talk at the same time and engage in some multitasking. I think this is definitely a topic where we have to revisit this and instruction work groups. But I think that we can approve this tonight and then continue those discussions down the road. Like I said, I think we have to walk and talk at the same time.
Thank you, Board Member Castro. Further discussion? Board Member Vandermeulen.
Yes, I agree on my board materials.
Nikki, can you turn on the mic, please?
Sorry. I read my board materials pretty frequently, even before my court hearings. Unfortunately, trying to make sense of the data on the day of the vote was just something that I couldn't do. I want to vote for this program. I just can't do it yet.
Thank you so much, Board Member Vandermeulen. I will weigh in saying that I think to have a significant number of board members say that they support virtual learning and understand what virtual learning has meant in the work of Dr. McCray over the course of this pandemic for our students in our schools, and say that additional information is necessary in terms of being able to support this work long-term, I think means that we can have an expanded conversation about this work. And I guess I am curious if board members have specific questions for Dr. McCray right now, because he is available to this meeting. And Board Member Morelli.
Yeah, thank you so much, President Muldrow, to call to direct us in highlighting and better understanding this item. Yes, Dr. McCray, it would be great to hear from you. Well, I guess first, the implication of not voting or not approving this budget item at this point.
There we go. Thank you so much. It's always the tech guy who's having all the tech issues, so forgive me for that. First and foremost, thank you so much for this opportunity to just speak on behalf of this particular work that we're doing. The online program is one that we decided as a district that we wanted to be able to support our students because we recognize that we had so many number of students who just were able to perform better on a virtual platform. We are experiencing so many students who are just succeeding, and they're there for multiple different reasons. Within the next couple of weeks, you're going to hear from a student who's been able to perform really to focus on her music. That was a hot topic. We had a young lady who said, I've been able to focus more on playing my violin because I'm able to balance my practice and my online work. Right? Because of the flexibility that I'm able to do, I can practice my music instrument a little bit more, and I'm also able to achieve with my work at the same time. When we think about what our implication is, one of the things that we really shuffled at the end of last year was hiring the quality staff in order to support the students that we were putting online. The teachers alone are a very different caliber amount of teachers than what you're thinking about the teachers in the classroom. We are looking for teachers who are just going to be totally flexible. It is not to say that all of our teachers aren't, but what we don't want to do is to have our teachers locked into our buildings. And then now we're trying to pull our teachers because of the fact that we have teachers who want to have an opportunity to teach virtually. We also want to be able to allow all of our teaching staff, if we're going to be able to have these additional allocations, to apply for the applications so that they are not locked already in buildings, and now they are not allowed that opportunity at the same time. So when you're thinking about what is a major implication of not, I think like when we're just thinking about the staffing in itself, that does cause for a lot of reasons. Like I'm already in the process of thinking about what our music teacher, where we're going to get that allocation from, our PE teachers, those positions that we don't need for the full allocation that we rely on to come from our building. Being able to know and to staff those individuals right now is very critical, especially during a time when buildings are doing that for its allocation.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. McCray, to speak to that. What I hear you say is that the work that we all have acknowledged being essential, the type of instruction that was instrumental to make sure that we were providing educational services for a large number of our students, the work that you have put forward and that had a waiting list for, is in need of early funding, in particular to secure our staff, to make sure that this program continues to be successful. So my concern around delaying this vote is that we may have unintended consequences that at this point I don't find to be sustainable in order for us to continue this program that we know it has become essential during the COVID time. And we are still in COVID time. I'm seeing you all on the screens with masks. And we know that are many of our students that cannot afford to be in the classrooms right now. That we know there are a lot of families that are intentionally choosing this option in order to get the education that they need and that they deserve. So thank you so much, Dr. McCray, and I'll pass it back to you, President Muldrow.
Thank you so much, Board Member Morelli, and thank you, Dr. McCray. Board Member Vandermeulen.
Remember this. I was thinking as a compromise that if we could add it to the April 11th board meeting with a special vote, we could still manage to get it in with the discussion that I think would be necessary. That way we wouldn't have a months-long delay, could still hire the staff that we need and still provide the information that the board members are asking for.
Board Member Vandermeulen, I very much appreciate that level of compromise in terms of, making sure that we do expedite this conversation, whether we, vote on this item this evening or vote on it later in the month of April. I also want to say that, strengthening online learning is a part of the future. Online learning is not going anywhere, and having a competitive online program, as so many of our neighboring districts do, is something I think we have to take responsibility for as a board. And so I think, committing to this work and, championing the leadership of Dr. McCray, who is so essential to our ability to provide instruction to students in the midst of a global pandemic, I think is really important. And I hope that the conversation we have tonight centers the needs of our young people and the immediate and urgent needs of our young people as we continue to navigate this global pandemic. I also think that strengthening our online program, you know, I know that none of us want to talk about what it looks like to pivot back to virtual learning. But the truth is that we don't know what, you know, COVID-19 will look like in 2022, 2023. And so having a strong online program sets us up to make the necessary adjustments to keep our community safe in the long run. If virtual learning is going to continue to be a part of our strategy in terms of keeping young people and educators safe. With that being said, I'm like, Chris, are you interested in making your motion?
There is some
Board Member
hand.
Pearson, I'm sorry, I missed your hand. And Board Member Vandermeulen, is your hand up again? Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, Dr. McCray, for having this option. I think we all stated earlier during the pandemic that having the options for our students and our scholars to be able to participate in a program that allows them to learn the best way that they can. For some of our students, you know, online is that option. So thank you for all your work. I think I want to one up, sorry, now I'm like too close. I want to just one up what Savian said. I do think that there's a way that we can continue doing the conversations around this because it is important and making sure that we have, because one of my concerns is also if we're going to implement a program and get as many staff as we need, that we can continue doing it in a successful manner and that those students who are part of the program and the teachers do not lose out if we don't have the funding to continue doing it. So I want to echo that concern of using the one-time funding, but at the same time, I also understand the necessity of this, right? So we can definitely continue doing the talk, vote, talk, and keep it going and figuring out how we can make sure that the funding is there to continue the program because it has been successful. We've seen it being successful. So yeah, I just wanted just one up that because I think it is important to keep that in context for our community so they understand that the ESSER funding is one-time funding and, you know, at the same time, we do support it generally as a board and we want to just make sure that things are successful for our students.
Board Member Gomez-Schmidt.
I move that we table item K, the expansion of the Madison Virtual Promise Program.
Second.
All those in favor, or I'm sorry, Nama, your advisory vote?
I'm going to abstain from this vote.
Thank you, Nama.
Actually, may I do a friendly amendment or is that too late?
Go for it.
The friendly amendment would be that it's brought, that to keep everything the same as Chris's, except that it would be brought back for the April 11th meeting. If that's acceptable.
Okay.
I guess I would ask, do we need more time to figure out which meeting it would come back to?
I would direct that question at Dr. McCray. So at Dr. McCray and Dr. Jenkins, I think you all have heard what the board members who want additional information are asking for. Are we able to provide that information this evening? If not, how much time would folks need to prepare that information?
I'm going to defer to Dr. McCray and ask him if he feel comfortable with that in terms of being able to come back the first 2 weeks, April 11th. Because then I would also have to look to our CFO and make sure that we get that voted in time.
Dr. Jenkins, can you turn your mic on, please?
Oh. Am I on now?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Sound like Barry White, right? No. No, but I'm going to defer to Dr. McCray in terms of readiness for it, but also to our CFO to make sure if we can get that vote in on April 11th, it could be the 4th or the 11th, but the 11th, give him more time, and we can get it into our workbooks and make sure that we're okay with that allocation. So to both of you, first to our CFO, can we make it?
Thank you, Dr. Jenkins. In regards to the early approval for Madison Promise, if it's acceptable to have a special vote at the April 11th meeting, we certainly can. I do still want to hear from Dr. McCray, though, on how this might affect the purpose of the early approval, which would be to accelerate the hiring timeline for these positions, which is the paramount reason why they're being brought tonight.
Yeah, so I heard of 4 things that was asked for the board: enrollment number, staffing, expansion plan, and family responses. So the only thing that I would not be able to like concretely speak on right now at this very moment would be that of our family responses. I just don't want to make up something and just begin to talk here. But I can definitely talk about our enrollment, especially at the secondary program. And I can talk about how we are staffing now and what we're looking at staffing in the future and what the requests for additional FTEs are. And then Ross, the hiring portion, I think it's still been an issue. I was scheduled to have a meeting as far as Friday to secure the allocation for thinking about our PE, our arts and music. We're trying to tighten that up because those individuals are trying to secure that for the building level. So that would be the only thing that we would need to talk about.
And that, so having said that, I think the one piece in hearing from the families, we wouldn't be able to do, but I would like to just add and clarify, we're not talking about virtual. That was during the pandemic. We're coming out of it. We're looking in the future to talk about online learning, where students become more the agent of their learning. We're not talking about teaching regular teaching on a technological platform. It's a total difference, and people have been doing online learning for a long time, and it is a part of the future. If we're going to be a competitive district, and we are, we're going to have a strong option for online learning, and not just for students who have one situation. Thank you.
Yes, I'll accept the amendment, the friendly amendment.
All those in favor?
Wait,
All those-
President Muldrow, can you clarify which, what are we voting right now? Are we voting on delaying the vote to
Yes.
April? Okay, thank you.
All those in favor? Yes. So the amendment fails. I now have to turn this item into a motion independently. Just give me a second, y'all.
So just to clarify, the motion to table this failed.
The motion to table it had 3 votes.
Because I saw my hand once and then not once, so I got confused.
I'm sorry, I did not pay attention to.
Maya, can you turn your mic, please?
Yeah, my bad. I did not pay attention to the actual formal motion. And so mine is a no. Okay. I move that the board increase, that the board have an increase of $850,000 to the instructional technology budget for an expansion of Madison Promise virtual programming using ESSER funding for 2022-2023.
Second.
Nama, your advisory vote.
Oh, I was gonna
Aye.
ask for it.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I just asked that we have an amendment, that we have a formal update to the previous information that we requested at the next instruction.
Savian, can you talk close to the mic?
Yeah, I request that we receive an update at the next instruction work group to the information that we requested regarding that data.
Is that an amendment?
I don't know if that needs to be an amendment,
right.
so I'm gonna ask TJ if he would if he is comfortable bringing forward that's what you're really asking, right? For the additional information regarding family response?
No, but attendance, staff allocation,
Sapien, we can't hear you, love.
Okay, so attendance, staff allocation, and enrollment.
Yes, I can prepare all that information. I will prepare all that information.
Thank you so much, Dr. McCray. Okay, y'all. So you've got the second, Nama, your advisory vote. Wait,
Aye.
Chris, your hand is up? Okay, Chris. Yes.
So before we vote, I just want to explain my vote. I will be voting no on this. That no vote is not meant to be any kind of a statement on the need for virtual learning during this pandemic, nor to be any kind of a statement on the great work that Dr. McCray has done. Rather, as an outgoing board member, I feel like with a clear conscience, I can't leave knowing that I left a future board with 10 FTE to try to work into the budget because of a decision I made with no accountability for myself. So that is why I'm going to be voting no on this.
Thank you, Board Member Carusi. Board Member Vandermeulen.
I am also voting no on this, not because I don't agree with virtual learning. Had I had the additional time to be able to in a work group, I could support it 100%. I cannot support it without that additional time. Thank you.
Board Member Carusi. Board Member Commissioner.
Thank you. I would also like to explain my vote. I am going to vote against this. I feel like there is just too much information that we don't have at this point to move forward with this and to put those 10 FTE on the ESSER funding. In the information that we got today, we have 136 students enrolled in the 6 to 12 option. And we have 200 spaces. And I know that there was changeover at the semester. And so I don't think we know yet if we are still dealing with students enrolling in this option because of the pandemic or because they prefer the online option. I still think we're in the middle of this pandemic and we can't quite tease that out yet. And we actually haven't gotten any information from the families to know why they're choosing this. And I fully support having a strong online option for us in the future. But I just think we need another couple of weeks to get more information.
I'm going to withdraw my motion. Board Member Pearson. Yes. Yeah, so I'm not going to explain my vote, but I just wanted to make a comment. Part of the work coming out of, we're not necessarily coming out of the pandemic because it will be here. But I do think we have the opportunity to reimagine what schools look like. And I do believe this is part of that reimagination. And I understand, again, like the fiscal responsibility that we have. But at the same time, I also understand that we will have to take some of those steps. And I do think that we are able, we hope that we are able to make sure that we can fully fund it in the future. And I just want to make sure that that is at the center, that our children are at the center of this decision, that yes, we know there will be hardships, but I would really hate us not to take this step. And then there is not, as we mentioned, being competitive in the future with other districts, making sure that, we are having these options that actually work for some of our children. And again, reimagining the way that we are doing schools. So I'm just having a hard time here, but I just really want to make that comment. I think it's important to keep it in the context of really centering our children. Board Member Morelli and then Board Member Vandermeulen.
I just wanted to remind this board the other times that I've seen this happen where there was a level of scrutiny, there was a level of, we need more information about this thing or this other thing, and what's the parent saying, what's the student saying. I've seen that happening to Nashamundo. I've seen that happen to Badger Rock, and I've seen that happen to Wright Middle School. What those schools have in common is innovation, waiting lists, and lots of qualitative data that supports the work that they're doing. And I see this as another one of those innovations that happen in the district that instead of derailing or voting on the same things that we have doing, is that we're pushing the limit of how we're doing. Yes, pushing the limit means that we need to have greater level of courage, greater level of confidence, and that we have to make decisions that are supportive of the times that we are right now. This is a program that have already demonstrated success. We're not talking about something that people don't know what it is. We have had plenty of updates around this program. We also know that this is a program that have a waiting list. So at the same time that we're having conversations of low enrollments in our district, we have a program that is actually attracting students from all over the district, which is exactly the same thing that happened with the other 3 schools that I just mentioned. So my last meeting for my term, I wanted to encourage all my colleagues and future board members to have courage and not be afraid of something new, because the new is the thing that we need. And we might not fully understand, we might not have all the data, the triangulations that we need to appease all our curiosities, and that will be okay, because there are other ways to measure a program that's successful. There is other ways to measure something that is working for our families. And I believe that Dr. McCray has demonstrated that over and over again. Thank you so much, President Muldrow.
Dr. McCray, I'd like to ask, if we don't see the same level of enrollment that we saw this year, and we don't need to utilize all 10 FTE for this program, how would we address that next year in 2022, 2023?
Coming back on camera. Okay, so first, I think the most important thing is for us to have a conversation about the request for the additional allocation is solely for the elementary level. Last year, for the elementary teachers for MVE, those teachers were pulled from the building. What we are trying to do now is to bring all of the online programming under one umbrella to have a more cohesive program, because the elementary was being led by our chief office while I was leading on the secondary office. The secondary program. So this additional FTE is solely for the request on behalf of the elementary program so that we can have everything together. When you look at the numbers, currently the 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders combined, that is 150 students. What we're trying to do is say that for those 10 FTEs, what we're looking at is about 100 4th graders and 100 5th graders for next year. And that would mean that each teacher would have about be able to split about those number of students. So when you say like, what will happen with the additional FTE, what we're hoping is that when we are able to now recruit earlier than we did last year, because last year we didn't have our students identified until those second week of school. Now we're moving to have the students identified before we leave in June. So before we leave for summer, students will know, we will be able to have everyone identified now so that we can have the allocation, or to be able to determine if we don't need to utilize a full allocation. So we'll have that information before we leave going to summer in June.
How would that information come back to the board?
How would that, or yeah, I can gladly provide an update. I'm working with either Dr. McGregor or Dr. Jenkins, whether it's in a written communication or instructional work group. I can gladly provide that information once we have it all tied up.
Thank you so much, Dr. McCray. Board Member Vandermeulen.
Yes, want to raise a few things. One, we recently got the request for how many FTE were required. In fact, I've been asking that question since February. I haven't been given the numbers till last week. Two, the number, my vote is based on the lack of information. In fact, the other votes that weren't tabled that affected disability were buying a building to segregate disabled students, programs on disability, and the fact that this isn't based on race. This is based on the fact that I would love to support it if I had the extra time. But being told that this isn't innovative is beyond the pale. I'm sorry that you disagree, and I respect you very much as a human being and as a coworker. In fact, I think you're one of the best we've had. However, I have to draw the line on that because this is innovative means you make the decision not to fund certain things or to fund certain things. That's great. But when we put a decision when we can't fund something on someone, I don't think that's not being innovative. I think that's being fiscally wise. I wish we could agree on this more, but I respect your view. I just needed to clarify with mine.
Board Member Morelli.
Yeah, I was talking about Badger Rock Middle School, Nikki, not the other building. I would like to call to a vote.
Nama, your advisory vote.
I'm gonna abstain from this vote.
All those in favor? Motion carries 4-3. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Recusals? Motion carries 4-3. And I'm sorry, y'all, in the course of that, I lost track of the next letter. N? Okay. Thank you. Okay. I move that the board have an increase of $396,000 to the secondary program budget for an additional credit recovery. I'm sorry. I move that the board increase up to $1,300,000 to the summer school budget for a summer arts academy using ESSER funding for 2022-2023.
Second.
Any discussion?
Nikki, do you mind turning your mic on?
I pulled this to say thank you. Thank you for recognizing the importance of the arts to our students. And let's hope that the allocations don't have to be cut in order to fund it, but our kids need the arts more than anything after a pandemic. And for that, I just want to say thank you.
Thank you so much, Board Member Vandermeulen. Nama, your advisory, Board Member Castro.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to express my support for this as the board member Vandermeulen, and just say that you know, it's a reality in life, but especially in governance right now, that we all have to deal with different degrees of uncertainty. This program, like the last program, is on one-time ESSER funding. I think that's been a fundamental flaw of the federal aid, that it can't be reoccurring. But we do know, what we do know is that these programs are in line with this board and this district's new district priorities. And we do know that we have things that we no longer want to do. And what's also true about these programs is that they improve access, innovation, and they are necessary to competing with other districts. That's the reality we're in right now. And so I think by continuing that board will, we can make these a permanent fixture in our district. So thank you.
Yeah, I want to share Board Member Vandermeulen and Board Member Castro's support of the arts. And I want to thank our superintendent and our senior leadership team and our community for supporting these opportunities for young people and helping us to wage greater opportunity within artistic expression for our young people. Nama, your advisory vote. I'm thinking, yes, Board Member Gomez-Schmidt.
On the side over here. Thank you. I also want to express support for the Summer Arts Academy. I do want to highlight something that one of the speakers tonight pointed out, is that it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to have a huge investment in summer arts and be cutting arts or music or whatever is happening there during the school year. So I guess I'd like to request an update on that to see where we're at with the school year things in relation to this.
I similarly would appreciate that update and agree that we want to invest in the arts holistically. So we want to invest in the arts and prioritize the arts throughout both the school year and summer school. However, right now we're voting on summer school. So I'm like, any further discussion? Okay. Nama, your advisory vote?
Aye.
All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. I move that the Board of Education increase of 100,000 to state and federal programs to budget for an ESSER project manager using ESSER funding for 2022-2023. Any discussion?
Nikki, the mic.
Someday I will learn microphones. You would think after almost 5 years I would get it. Obviously, I require a little more training. But very simply, reason I put this forth is $100,000 is a very large salary, but on this, I think it's warranted. It's something that this might be one of the hardest jobs that we have to do. However, what I'm worried about is that we not have any feedback until the next budget on how things are being spent. Therefore, I'm asking that we get periodic.
Are you directing your question at?
Yes, administration. Can I get periodic updates on that issue?
Most definitely.
Then I have no objection.
Nikki, I want to ask for a level of detail around what you're requesting. Are you asking for periodic updates from Dr. Jenkins? Are you asking for periodic updates from the program manager that we're bringing on?
Sorry for my lack of specificity from the program manager we are bringing on.
Thank you. Board Member Carusi.
I just want to voice my wholehearted support for this position. We're going to be managing more than $50 million in federal grants, and the fact that one person is being hired to do that to me seems miraculous. That's an enormous undertaking. So hats off to Ross and his office for figuring out how to do this with just the addition of one person on ESSER funds.
Further discussion? All right. Nama, your advisory vote.
Aye.
All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. I move that the Board of Education adopt and approve all of the motions set forth in Section 10 of the electronic agenda prepared for the March 22nd, 2022 regular school board meeting, exactly as said motions are written. By voting affirmatively on this motion, a board member may express his, her, or their affirmative vote on each of the motions consolidated hereby, and subject to any express separations that have been made by any member of the school board.
Second.
Any discussion?
Separation. 10.7.
Board Member Carusi, you want to separate? I'm sorry, Board Member Gomez Schmidt, you want to separate
10.7.
10.7? Board Member Carusi.
10.8 and 10.17.
Um, 10.32 also.
Okay. Did we already do that one?
We don't know if folks are talking, but we can't hear.
Okay.
Okay, 10.31.
Any additional separations?
No, I said 10.32 was the one.
So we have 10.32 and 10.31 separated. Thank you. Any additional separations? Nama, your advisory vote? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Maya, can you tell me in order, what's the first one? 10.7.
10.7. This is the core instructional materials for high school math for Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. And I pulled this one for further discussion, kind of more generally around our process for addressing curriculum options that have been piloted. I think it's important for the board to hear how the pilots have worked from the teachers, from the staff, and hear more about the recommendation and how the implementation will happen. Specific for these materials, one of the things that I've learned about instructional materials for math is that they can fall into sort of two categories. Ones that really focus on the understanding and ones that focus highly on the practice, giving students lots of practice. And this one, from what I understand, and maybe Kaylee can explain a little bit more, falls in the understanding piece of this and may need some supplements or some work among the teachers to make sure they have a large enough bank of practice problems to give the students in combination. And so I guess that's part of the implementation. And the question is how do you see that working as we adopt this and the schools work on getting this ready for next year?
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having us here. Chris, great question. We are actually fortunate enough to have some of our school staff, both middle school and high school, on this call today so that they can support in answering these questions. Chris, so we'll be able to hear from those school staff tonight. I heard a couple questions from you, Chris. I think the first one was around understanding the process for this pilot. And then the second one was really around the implementation of the core resource in the high schools. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Okay, wonderful. So I'm going to start the process for the pilot, and then I'll ask Patty Schaefer to come on and just add any additional context here. She's our director of STEM in the C&I department. So the process for this pilot, we followed, of course, board policy and ensured that we had all of the stakeholders at the group, at the table. The process began in April with initial review and general feedback, and that was in April of 2021. And then in June, we received feedback from teachers and were able to really select and narrow down a list of resources for a more focused review. We continued to meet with district course teams to get their input and to have them really drive this decision-making during that time frame. Then at the end of June of 2021, we identified the candidate resources for the pilot, and then in July began the planning for that pilot. In August of 2021, we began our professional development for that pilot, and the people involved there were all of our teachers across our high schools who teach algebra, geometry, and algebra 2. Then in fall of 2021, the pilot was launched. And through then we collected ongoing feedback from all of those teachers, again, in algebra, geometry, and algebra 2. This February in 2022, our district course teams came together, who are of course engaged in this work together, and made a recommendation for adoption and purchase. And that brings us to you tonight. Patty, is there anything that I missed or anything you wanted to elaborate on?
I would just add that I heard in the question also wondering about what the instructional materials themselves in terms of that balance of conceptual understanding and the practice or procedural skills that we often see in math materials. And that was a particular focus that we had because of conversations we had with schools in regards to past materials that we'd had in these particular courses and in our high school courses altogether. So I certainly think that the best people to address that, if we want to also tackle that question, perhaps as a next step, is to hear from the teachers who are part of the pilot, or two of the teachers here who are part of our pilot process. Kaylee, is it good for me to ask one of them to share?
Chris is nodding yes, so yes, please.
Oh,
Yes,
great.
please. Thank you.
Elizabeth, would you join us and share a bit about what you've learned from your pilot process with the materials this fall?
For sure. Hi, I'm Elizabeth Baker. I teach freshman and Avid 12 at Memorial. Just to address the first question about the procedural practice, one thing that I have really appreciated about this curriculum is that the breadth of the curriculum isn't too much. So we have actually been able to set aside about a day a week to have students do more of those procedural practice problems using the daily practice that's assigned, just to address that. And then I also just wanted to kind of speak in support of my experiences and what I've seen from students, is that really like this, these instructional materials have really supported an instructional shift in my classroom to being more student-centered. So I'm seeing students positioned as the creators, the doers, and the experts at math, and they're able to share their ideas with one another. And while they're doing that, really like building their mathematical identity as well as their skills. I think additionally, the instructional materials have very specific language routines and supports for English language learners and students with disabilities that has really impacted student experience in the classroom overall.
Board Member Vandermeulen, and then, I'm sorry. Board Member Vandermeulen, and then Board Member Carusi.
Yes, I was reading on the math curriculum, and they said that there was some deficit language on the curriculum with individuals with disabilities. Has that been rectified?
Great question, Nikki. I'll go ahead and take that. I believe what you are reading is in reference to the materials that we are not putting up for adoption. And that is one of the major reasons why it is not up for adoption, because it does not align with our stance as an anti-racist district.
Thank you for the clarification.
I greatly appreciate that question, Board Member Vandermeulen. Thank you for getting us that clarification. Board Member Carusi.
Thank you. So I have two questions and a comment. My questions are just related to the curriculum that we're currently using, which I believe is Carnegie, and why we are replacing it. We just adopted Carnegie 7 years ago. Frequent curriculum changes are hard on teachers. So I would just like to know what the issues were with Carnegie that have inspired us to replace the curriculum, and what evidence we have that this curriculum will hopefully stick longer than Carnegie did. So those are my two questions. And my comment is, in the future, I would prefer to see decisions about curriculum come to a work group meeting before they get put on the consent agenda, so we don't have to have long discussions like this in consent agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. I'll go ahead and answer that question about why now and what about Carnegie. So you're absolutely right. We purchased Carnegie Learning Resources in 2015 for Algebra 1 and Geometry courses. And those particular texts are no longer in print, and they are not available from our publisher. In terms of Algebra 2, we do not currently have a common resource for Algebra 2 across our high schools to support in course alignment work and new standards across our districts. Patty, anything else you'd like to add to that?
I think to the question that Chris also poses in regards to what we're doing to really, I think, establish a stronger implementation plan in order to see this have a longer success and lifetime in our schools. So these resources come as both a print and an online option, with guarantee that our access will continue to follow updates with any updates to the curriculum itself. So we won't have to necessarily right? Hear again from a publisher that these are no longer in print overall. So there's a sustainability on that end. There's also then really thinking about how our process of working with our school teams, right? You've met so far Elizabeth, who joined us here, not just in the process that has happened so far that Kaylee highlighted, but also in moving forward. So our plan is, following support from the board's decision here, is to continue to work with teachers from across our high schools and in our middle schools who teach high school level courses that'll be using these materials to plan for not just the launch of our implementation that begins this summer and into next school year, but as an ongoing piece to make sure that we're working with them and that these are supporting students in their classrooms and that they're getting the support from professional learning to use them in their classrooms. So it's an ongoing part of how I think we're making an adjustment to what we've learned from past practices in that way.
Further discussion? Board Member Goma-Schmidt.
Yeah, just one more question. I appreciate you sharing all this information with us. One of the other parts of this, I know, as the teams were piloting this, was the work around making sure that the resource worked for the earned honors and standalone honors options. Is this the resource that works well for all students and all levels?
Wonderful question. We had Matt who was going to respond to that. I'm not sure if Matt's still on the call. Patty? No? Okay, I'm happy to take that response then, Patty, unless you'd like to.
Go ahead, Kaylee. No, Matt had to leave.
Wonderful. Yes. So, Chris, wonderful question, right? And that is absolutely one of the things that we're considering as we are adopting materials, is that it has to lend itself to also be able to align with our earned honors work and our performance assessment work. And that these materials do just that. These materials actually have extensive opportunities for performance assessments, which is one of the reasons that our course teams got really excited about this resource. And so what we're excited to be able to start doing now is, now that we're going to have this text aligned throughout our high schools, is we'll be able to bring these course teams together so that they can collaboratively plan for what those performance assessments look like and how we are able to really use these resources to meet the level of rigor in our earned honors courses. But yes, that was absolutely a consideration. And our course teams are excited to be able to have the same stuff and to get in a space together to plan what that looks like in terms of our honors courses.
And it'll work for the standalone honors too, because I know those courses haven't always been using the same materials either.
Yes.
Thank you.
Of course.
I move that the Board of Education approve the purchase of online licenses and instructional materials for teachers and students from Imagine Learning, Illustrative Mathematics, using $535,744 from the Curriculum and Instruction CRLM funds. Nama, your advisory vote?
Aye.
All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. (10-8) discussion. Board Member Carusi.
So I brought this one forward. Like the math discussion in the future, I would like to see curriculum discussions come before a work group. But my concerns around the chemistry curriculum purchase are a little bit different. You guys made a very compelling argument that we currently don't have a math curriculum because it's out of print. We can't get it. In the case of chemistry,
Board Member Carusi, I'm going to ask you to speak into the mic.
Okay. My understanding for the chemistry curriculum is that what we have is inconsistency, that different high schools have developed their own curricula and we don't have a common curriculum across the district. But that doesn't mean that the quality of the curricula that have been developed by our high schools is not good. And I would, rather than just purchase a textbook, I would rather see the district purchase some release time for our staff from all 4 of our high schools to get together, compare curricula that they have created figure out what's working well, and then make a decision. Do we create a common curriculum from materials that have already been created by our staff that may be working quite well, or do we need to purchase a textbook? So I actually do not support the purchase of a textbook right now. I would rather wait and get that additional input from teachers and give teachers more time to work together to find a solution for chemistry. I know that the chemistry pilot was not done in every one of our high schools, and that also concerns me. I would like all of our teachers to have a voice in this decision. And also, I really think that we have some good materials that have been developed by staff, and I would like to see more of an emphasis on grassroots and staff-driven solutions to the issue of curriculum for science.
Chris, I agree with you. I would also love to hear from our educators. I will ask if they're available this evening to participate in this conversation.
Yes, and they are available to participate in this conversation. So I'm going to ask Pete Yeager, our high school science teacher leader, to come on camera and share a little bit about the process, the need, and the why.
Hi there, my name is Pete Yeager, science teacher leader, as Ms. Jackson just mentioned. So our process for working through the selection and process and pilot process is very similar to what was done with math. We invited and had representation from all 4 comprehensive high schools through the summer in selecting a material to pilot. And then as we moved into the summer, then offered the option for schools to participate in that pilot. And 3 of our 4 high schools decided yes, that they were going to do that. Materials were also made available to our other 2 high schools as well, so they could review as well, but didn't participate in the formal pilot process itself. So schools had the opportunity to examine materials. That representation was from buildings was present in that process in order to look at those materials and then engage in a way that they felt was appropriate for them to do at this time.
Further discussion? Yeah. Board Member Goma-Schmidt.
No, thank you. And thanks for the information on this. I, having seen how the chemistry works in at least one of our high schools, I really do appreciate Chris's suggestion about having the teachers look and have collaborative time to look at the materials that they've already created and see where those overlaps exist. Yeah, I guess I don't have another question around that. I'm concerned that, 3 out of the 4 schools piloted and 1 didn't participate. And yeah, I'm not sure I'm ready to vote on this one or approve it.
Can I ask why 3 of the comprehensive high schools participated in the pilot and 1 did not?
I think the primary reason they may have felt like capacity, like that was just something they didn't want to take on at this time. In conversations leading into the school year, invitations were sent and not a lot of response came back. So we just moved forward, but in conversations going throughout the school year, I think it mainly was a capacity issue and the idea of adding something else onto the plate was a scenario that wasn't something that they wanted to tackle, I believe.
Thank you so much for that information. Further discussion? I move that the Board of Education approve the purchase of Inspire Chemistry online licenses and instructional materials for teachers and students from the McGraw-Hill 6-year license using $245,330.09 from the Curriculum and Instruction CRLM funds.
Second.
Nama, your advisory vote?
Aye.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 4-3.
Permission to explain.
Yes, Board Member Vandermill. And then
Reason for
I'm gonna take a recess.
The reason for my vote is not that I disagree on chemistry, but McGraw-Hill has a record on textbooks of leaving out major things regarding race, regarding history, regarding many other concepts that go against, in my opinion, Mmsd's commitment to anti-racist beliefs, and therefore I cannot support them.
Thank you so much for explaining your vote, Board Member Vandermeulen. We are going to take a brief recess and we will begin again at 9:10. Welcome back, everybody. I move that the Board of Education approve entering into an emergency contract in the estimated amount of $3,500,000 between MMSD Food and Nutrition and Cisco Baraboo for commercial distribution of food for the 2022-2023 school year with the funding from the FY23 Food and Nutrition operating budget. Thanks.
Second.
Thank you, Board Member Vandermeulen. Any discussion? Board Member Carusi.
Thank you. So I pulled this one. First, there's no doubt in my mind that when it comes to food sourcing and supply chains, we've got an emergency going on. I mean, the feedback we've heard from parents about the quality of food in the schools and from staff about the quantity and the frequent menu changes, I think verifies the fact that food service is a struggle right now. And I think this does reach emergency status. However, not doing a competitive bid also robs the district of an opportunity to move forward on our sustainability goals. And I just want to, I'm fine with approving this 1-year emergency contract with Cisco. I do not love Cisco. I do not love their labor practices. And I'm hoping as we move into a competitive bid environment next year, the board can work with Dr. Hodo to put out a call for bids that reflects our commitment to try to do more farm to school, to source more food from local farmers, and to find a provider who's willing to work with us on those flexibilities so we can walk the talk and serve food in our schools that we can feel proud of.
I'd like to ask Dr. Odom or Cedric Odom, Odom, how do you say it? I'm sorry for the mispronunciation of your name. I want to ask you if we are currently engaging in a competitive bid process for next year.
Okay, can you hear me now? All right, first of all, thank you for the question, Board President Muldrow. The nature of the consent that's come before you today, is that better? Okay. The nature of the consent that's coming for you today is in regards toward the, as you know, Gordon, which is our prime vendor, has backed out of the contract, or they're not renewing it. We will enter into a competitive bid for next year. That's the first question. But the second part of it is the nature of the urgency is because we have to order food a year in advance for commodities. So what this contract does is we work with DPI to allow us to have an emergency contract so that we can procure food for next year. So that's the nature of this here.
Thank you so much for that clarification. And Chris, thank you for your question. I think that was incredibly important to talk about and discuss in terms of, what is a pretty urgent situation and also what is our long-term strategy and really distinguishing the difference between the two. Board Member Gomes-Schmidt.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks, Board Member Carusi, for pulling this. I agree with you. I think I see this as an opportunity. I know that food and procurement has been an incredible struggle this year, and understand the need to do this emergency part. I know that our planning for the next one then is going to have to start pretty quickly. And so I'd like to see us put a process in place to really talk about what it means to increase more sustainable options in our food options going forward. And so if that means, I don't know if that means a community committee. I do know that we received some feedbacks from some of our state representatives giving some support towards looking at sustainable food options. So I think if anywhere can do it, I think here in Madison and southeastern Wisconsin, we just have a lot of options and a lot of opportunity to do this. So yeah, I'll appreciate the opportunity to discuss that further.
Absolutely, Board Member Gomes-Schmidt. Would like to point out a couple more things as well. What was even more important in this regard is around the velocity report. The velocity report allows us to order our most common items so that they're secured on a frequent basis. What you saw in the disruption in the supply chain for Gordon Food Service, it's reflective in our menu choices. Simply put, they could not provide us what we needed on a consistent basis. Cisco is a larger chain. They can. The other part of it is our menu rationale will change for next year. We're more USDA commodities based. And the USDA commodities program is a consistent program. They don't have a supply chain in that regards. So DoD food, USDA products will allow us to be at the core of our menu. So myself and Michelle is working. We certainly encourage community input, and we eagerly agree with you that we want to make a wholesale change in our food service operation.
Board Member Castro.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to quickly say that in the future, we can certainly use this to elevate and maybe educate not only ourselves as a board, but members of the community to understand the USDA and DPI and city regulations towards food and our kitchens too, and things that we aspire to in terms of food and barriers that we may face to reach those aspirations in terms of sourcing locally for our school meals, and definitely something that the board has deep interest in moving forward, but appreciate your work and definitely understand the supply chain issues, the food shortages, and a lot of other things associated with inflation and the pandemic. So thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, I do. I want to thank my fellow board members for their questions and their comments. I also want to thank our folks working to get food out to our students and our entire community. I got a chance to visit our facility recently on Flom. There are people who are working, at 4 o'clock in the morning every single day to make sure that our young people eat. And this work is easy to forget about. It's easy to erase. I appreciate that the board is lifting this work. And I think prioritizing, making sure our young people have access to nutritious food at school is a good conversation to have. So thank you all for engaging in it right now and long term. Thank you for all the work that you all are doing.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Nama, your advisory vote?
Aye.
All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. We're at 10.32.
Thank you so much. My main comment or question here was I'm wondering how we are, and this has come up in the past, but how we plan to navigate inflationary price increases related to these purchases, and if there are any strategies that we are employing to mitigate those price increases.
Yeah, so what I would ask is my colleagues from our building services team, if Alyssa's online, she's the overseer of this particular project. She can share with you in regards toward the 10.22. Alyssa and Sabella? 10.22, correct?
Yeah. I think, yes, I'm like,
okay.
I knew yes, I knew that was a misunderstanding.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's my bad. My apologies. And that's why I'm going to read the motion before we start talking about the motion. So I'm going to keep going in order, and I'm going to bring us to 10.31, which is, okay. I move that the Board of Education approve the guaranteed maximum price and resulting construction management contract amendment for the referendum 2020 Memorial High School project scope in the amount of $63,043,614 funded by the referendum 2020 construction services budget.
Second.
Got it. Thank you. Yeah, so my main question was strategies we are employing to mitigate the inflationary price increases and market conditions?
Well, definitely excellent question. I want to ask that Svetlin and Aaron from Findorf. We'll start off with you, Aaron, and if you can share with the board some of the things that we're doing from the value engineering that took off 1.8 million on this right here so far. And Aaron, other strategies that we have in regards to inflation. Some things we simply can't, but we also are working very hard to keep this in line. Aaron, and then we'll turn it over to Svetlin.
Yeah, so the first thing that I would state is that by issuance of the GMP and the bidding, we are entering into lump sum agreements for the subcontractors. So that is mitigating a lot of budget risk as we transition from carrying budgets on these scopes of work to locking in lump sum contracts. So that's the number one strategy we have. As we have reviewed the impact of inflation, which has been noticeable, we have worked with building services to review the items that are included to make sure that we are providing the best value for the district with the funds being allocated. Svetlin, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
I would also like to add that the inflation that we are seeing over the referendum projects should not be surprise to anybody. We are in a very competitive market conditions. There is lack of vendor availability, and the more projects we bring forward, the more the less vendors we have placing bids, and that increases the cost really. So the other piece that I would like to add is that the problem with inflation is not a problem that building services can solve on our own. I think we all work as a team together with our accounting and with our purchasing to work collaboratively on solving that problem and moving forward these projects successfully.
Thank you so much.
Further discussion? Nama, your advisory vote?
Aye.
All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. I move that the Board of Education approve the purchase of 3 Ford 2020. Oh my gosh. Thank goodness. I move that the Board of Education approve the expenditure in the amount of $961,722 to successfully carry out the referendum 2020 project delivery by contracting Huffman Facility Development, representing the school district in the project delivery and commissioning and closeout phase, utilizing the FY22 building services maintenance budget.
Absolutely.
Oh, thank you. Board Member Gomez-Schmidt.
Thank you. And I pulled this just to get a little bit more information. When we switch over to the owner's representative, and I see that the group that bid on this Huffman Facility Development has worked with a number of other school districts to do the same type of work. How will they be interacting with Findorf, I guess, and who is going to be, how does the board get updates and the district get updates? Does this change how we're going to be receiving information along the way?
Yes, excellent question. Aaron, since you've had some background experience with Huffman, if you want to share the nature of an owner's rep and how they support building services.
Yeah, so I've worked with owners reps, including Huffman Facility Development in the past. And whereas Findorf is providing the construction management service really focused on the construction aspect, which is the most significant cost of the referendum, Huffman will provide services that support other aspects of the project, such as coordination with district entities, moving, abatement, furniture, that sort of thing, that kind of pulls things together. I would expect with respect to board communications that he would be engaged as part of this group, or their firm would be engaged as part of this group, and would be part of the communications moving forward.
Thank you for that answer. I'm hoping that, Aaron, you're not going to disappear in the process, that we'll keep getting updates from you as well as the new group we're working with.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, thank you.
And Board Member Gomez-Smith, I'll also add that you'll see a constant level of communication. We actually have a communication strategy. We talked about that last week. Our comms team and Aaron's comm team have put together, and I think I put it in the board packet a couple weeks ago. They put together a very good update, and where the owner rep will support us is that you're talking about referendum team, basically 4 people in this district. And the reality of it is we've pushed the referendum and we've done an amazing job, just this little small elite team. But the construction phase is totally different. When you have 6 buildings under construction, coupled with ESSER funds, coupled with playgrounds, coupled with the district's 60+ schools, and you ask the team to still perform at the same level, I think it's very tough. It's tantamount to asking a teacher to teach with 70 kids in the classroom, and there's only 1 teacher. And so the owner's rep will be a third leg to a stool. They'll balance us, Findorf. Their sole purpose is to find opportunities for savings. They're subject matter specialists, just like Findorf is. They have a very unique skill set, so to speak. And they will allow us to move with a level of speed and efficiency when decision-making comes.
Yeah, I just want to say I appreciate this, Mr. Hodo, and I know the amount of work that your team has been doing around the referendum and just the regular work of running the district. So I want to say how much I appreciate this and really support this move to keep the referendum projects moving forward and communicating with the community around the work we're doing. So thank you.
I certainly will get that information over to you. And keep in mind, this is over a course of 33 months, almost 2.5 years too. Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Now your advisory vote.
Aye.
All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. All right. We have no other business proposed for this meeting. Other reports to the board. City of Madison Education Committee, Board Member Morelli.
Thank you so much, Board President Muldrow. At our last meeting, we made a recommendation that MMSD and Dane County to codify the Education Committee as a committee hosted by the 3 entities. Currently, that committee is hosted and supported and by the city. So the expansion to that support it as a means to continue sustainability of that partnership. And then in addition to having this co-hosting setup, the committee is also recommending that staff from MMSD and staff from the county to also be part of those meetings. And in particular, around the shared priorities of the committee, which are transportation, housing, homelessness, mental health, digital inclusion, and youth employment. The last meeting of the committee was also marked by being the last meeting of our co-chair supervisor, Carousel Baird. We share deep gratitude for her years of service in the county board and also the years of service in the education committee. We had also an election of a new vice chair since Supervisor Baird was the current vice chair, and we elected Supervisor Heidi Waglerner to be the vice chair. The committee has decided to continue to meet through the spring, and it's likely that our vice chair will continue to chair until we vote for a new chair for the committee. For next month will be my last committee meeting. I'm smiling, but I'm also deeply sad that done such a great lift in making sure that committee has quorum, that committee has energized, and I think that we made it some really good recommendations through the committee, and I hope that we also build some long-lasting relationships in particular with the city and the county. For next month's committee meeting, we'll discuss the membership of the committee. There's a consideration to adding young people to that committee, and there's also consideration to including community members. The committee will have 2 new board members after April. The meeting in April is on the 13th. And I'll pass it back to you, President Muldrow.
Board Member Morelli, I would not be able to, I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I didn't acknowledge all of the work that you've done with this committee over the last 3 years and how much it has meant to our students and our community. You have been really a force to promote solidarity and, our ability to work together across governments for the county and the city and the school district during a global pandemic. And I think that it would be easy to take that for granted, but I can't. And I'm so grateful for you for all the work that you've done and for what you've made that committee into. And I hope that we as a board continue to live up to the standard of work that you created while doing this work. And thank you for continuing on April 13th.
Thank you so much, President Muldrow.
Student Senate, Nama.
Yeah, so Student Senate has been engaging in a lot of conversations about safety and student wellness. We've also, through guests and presentations, we've been discussing the Mmsd academic plan, and we've been having a lot of discussions about the future of Student Senate with the election coming up in the spring. So we're super excited about that and getting students involved and interested in running for these positions. We also, the Civic Committee hosted its first voter registration drive at West High School I think it was a week ago, and we got 70 seniors registered to vote, which is super exciting. And we're hoping to have these voter registration drives at other Mmsd high schools in the upcoming weeks or month. So yeah.
Nama, you're the best. Thank you so much for helping our young people get ready for the community by making sure they're registered to vote. I think this is something that we should be committed to as a district, and thank you for leading the way. I'm so proud to get to serve with you and so grateful for your leadership. Madison School Community Recreation Advisory Committee, Board Member Vandermeulen.
Yes, before I get to that, I want to thank Nama again for inviting me to participate in the voter registration drive and helping me to register voters. I really appreciate the ability to be involved, and I really thank you for that. As for MSCR, we have now accepted 6 new members, and they will be at our next meeting. Our fall programs are winding down. We had 21,239 participants for 78% capacity. Summer registration started March 14th with 5,630 participants enrolled on the first day. That's 977 more participants than on the first day in 2019. So we're really, really excited by this. Additionally, MCR is working with the City Parks Division to provide swim lessons and group swims at the Goodman Pool, which were very important because a lot of individuals from minority communities such as disability, such as Latinx, such as African American, oftentimes are not included in these programs. What we're trying to also do is to figure out how to make these more accessible transportation-wise. And that's something we are still brainstorming. And our 18th annual For Friends, FORE, golf outing is on Tuesday, July 19th, 2022 at the Oaks Golf Course. And we're seeking sponsors and hope to raise $40,000 for the MSCR program so we can help not only defer costs, but also help those who cannot afford programs otherwise.
Thank you so much for those updates, Board Member Vandermeulen, and thank you for all the work you're doing to make sure that our summer recreational programming is as inclusive as possible.
My pleasure.
Lastly, The Safety and Student Wellness Ad Hoc Committee met for the first time last week on Thursday. Board Member Morelli.
Thank you so much, President Muldrow, for making sure that there is a dedicated time for updates during regular board meetings. I think it's really critical to have my colleagues here to know a little bit more about what's happening in the ad hoc committee, but also I think that speaks to your leadership around the forming this ad hoc and making sure that our community is abreast of what's going on. I want to share deep gratitude to all my colleagues that have recommended folks to the ad hoc group. And many thanks to Barb Osborne, who worked around the clock last week to make sure that this meeting happened. We know that there were some opportunities regarding making sure folks get the calendar invites, and there were a couple of students that were not able to access the meeting. So we're working on that. The group met and had an opportunity to introduce themselves and have a discussion regarding the logistics, time of the meeting, voting balance between adults and students, and making sure that our students' voice are lifted up and part of the decision-making around the safety and wellness. We also got some feedback that the district needs to improve our communication with the community. So appreciating the opportunity to be sharing here during this meeting, and we are going to continue to meet with the communications team to figure out a best plan around communications, around what's happening in that committee. We're hoping that we will have all students and adults present at our next April 7th meeting. And one of the topics for discussions will be the stakeholder meetings that will be scheduled by the ad hoc group. At this point, we are still looking for a recommendation from this board to form the youth and family members and guardians stakeholder group, community partners and advocates, mental health and wellness professionals, as well as elected officials. And the group discussed adding one more stakeholder group that will be comprised by school staff, in particular student services staff, special education, and security assistants. The stakeholder group will be formed primarily by building staff. And I know my colleague Goma Schmidt also highlighted that at our last meeting. I wanted just to preview to you all that we are likely bring some updates and potentially some additional items for voting at a special board meeting, but we're still making and solidifying that request. And I'll pass it back to President Muldrow.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. All those in favor? Or I'm sorry, Nama, your advisory vote? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Chris and Ananda, thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.